Okay, we are on YouTube. The chair may proceed.
Okay, thank you. It's 7 o'clock, so we can start. This is the November 30th, 2022 meeting of the Lafayette Design Review Commission. And we will start the meeting with a roll call. So Armin Hadloo.
Present.
Kristen Seidel.
Present.
Eugene Sim.
Here.
John Gray is here. And Glenn Cass is excused this evening. We have an agenda, and do I have a motion to adopt?
All motion.
Second. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Thank you. All in favor, Armin?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Eugene?
Aye.
And John is aye. Next on our agenda is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on this or an upcoming agenda within the purview of this commission. Renata, are there any members of the public who have indicated they'd like to speak?
If you would like to make a public comment for items not on tonight's agenda, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And there are no hands raised. Okay,
and then moving on to our consent calendar. Our consent calendar this meeting is just the two October meeting minutes. Now, the meeting of October 12th, Eugene and I were not present at that meeting. Armin and Kristen were, and also Glenn was. Renata, with only 2 of 3, is that a quorum that's enough to approve those minutes? It's 2/3 of the people present at that meeting.
I don't, yes, it is, actually. Sorry, I got a tip from Nancy. Yes,
Nice.
That is enough to pass the minutes.
Okay, so so Kristen and Armin, motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Then all in favor of the 2 of you, Armin
Aye.
and Kristen.
Aye.
So the minutes are approved. October 26th, all commissioners were present. And do we have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. All in favor, Armin,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Eugene,
Aye.
and John is aye. Thank you. We'll moving right along here. There are no study sessions this evening. So our first continued public hearing is the DR 2519 DD Miramar Mount Diablo Boulevard project, the project at 3462 and 3470 Mount Diablo Boulevard. So Renata, please take it away.
Nancy is in the process of joining us. She will be presenting the item. Yeah.
We will present.
Renata, can you enable screen share, please?
You should be good now.
Okay, thanks. Commissioners, it should be a short presentation. The item before you is the design details for DR 2519 Miramar per the approval resolution condition number 19. This was last heard by DRC on November 9th. This is the previous rendering of building 3 that was requested by DRC to show the corner building as seen from Mount Diablo. The commission had previously requested to finesse this corner building just because of its visibility off the right of way. This rendering, is their updated modifications to this building. The project sponsor revised the floor plans and elevations, as well as the landscape plans, showing the changes that they made to the southeast corner. Modifications included massing reduction at the east and south facades, the revised trellis on the roof deck, recessing the south facade on the garage at the first floor, and adding some material landscape changes at the ground floor to minimize that floor, the look of that floor. They added stone cladding as a material, some sconces, a trellis above the garage, and they also modified the curb around the garage to allow for planting to reduce the overall massing of the building. They also reduced the visual impact of this corner by breaking up the white massing in the middle.
So for
Yeah.
clarity, that could you just show us, this is what
This
we
is
saw
the-
last time?
Yes, this is November 9th version, and this is the modifications that they have made to the building.
Great, thank you.
Staff is recommending that DRC adopt resolution 2022-15 approving the design details. The initial conditions of approval should still apply to the project, and staff doesn't recommend any additional conditions. That concludes my presentation.
Commissioner, questions for Nancy? So I have one. Last time we discussed and I actually requested of the applicant that they revise the window details where in the siding so that the recess depth is the same as the detail that they were proposing for the stucco. Did they address that request?
I did not receive any additional materials regarding the windows, but they may have it available when they do their presentation.
Okay. Then with that, we can open to public comment.
If you would like to make a public comment, or
Or the applicant.
yeah, the applicant presents, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Did I skip it? I'm sorry, I
No
did.
worries. No
It
worries.
happens even now. Sorry about that. The applicant may present for up to 10 minutes. Thank you. And I'm sure they won't need that long.
Give me one moment while I present them or promote them. So Mark and Brenna, you are now panelists. If you'd like to unmute or turn on your videos, you're free to present.
Hi, this is Brenna. Apologies, I'm having some connectivity issues on my computer, so I'm trying to join from there as well. In the effort of time, I wonder if Nancy, if you wouldn't mind showing the rendering on the screen again. Commissioner, we heard your comment about the recessed windows. We had not proposed a revision to the detail we had presented last time, which is where we increased the trim by 2. I think that is something we can consider and have as a condition, but we had not sent that revision to Nancy at this time.
Okay, is there anything else, Brenna, you or others in the applicant would like to say before we go to public comment at the correct time?
No, I don't think we had anything to add. I mean, I think Nancy covered it very well. You know, we recessed that top floor. We also, as she mentioned, separated the massing in the middle with the white, added a portion of red stucco there. So you have the massing is broken down in the center. And as you can see, I think a bulk of the work was done on that first floor, recessing the garage plane of the entries. And what that did is it allowed us to add, we worked with our civil engineer to add some planting right at the corner. And that's what's allowing the space for vines to grow up onto the trellis we added. And then the stone that we're proposing on that base floor is, I think, a very nice accent material and ties into surrounding Lafayette architecture. And we think it's very complementary and highlights that entry. So overall, I think the before and after this rendering is kind of speaks for itself. You know, definitely took what you said and tried to make some modifications.
Okay, Commissioner, questions for
Sure.
the applicant?
Sure, I have some
Eugene?
questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Brenna, really appreciate the follow-ups. These two before and after renderings are very helpful. I do have some questions, right? This is a period for asking further questions. Have you, Brenna, as you now have articulated what we had requested, have you looked at the adjacent vertical units on the, would it be on the right side? As I look at it, I see two additional rows of houses, right? Vertically. I'm talking about two shadowed massing profile as a backdrop to this corner facade that we've been very much focused on. Yes. Have you looked at those two in relation to this additional articulation we have requested? Now you have actually implemented. We appreciate that. But how does that affect the other readings of the rest of this facade, right? We're looking at an isolated angle view, which is what we really are very focused on. But I just want to make sure that it doesn't look odd or arbitrary to the two additional volumes that are expressed in the shadow point beyond 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and you're right. So I guess from this angle, you don't necessarily see it, but when we were working through those revisions, you know, we were looking at it from all angles. So I don't have that view available right now. I can send it later, but it definitely. And let's see if I can pull up an elevation to try to make that.
Yeah, I
more
think the
apparent right now.
elevation view of that east facade would help answer that question.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'm going to be seeing this view from McDonald's hamburger driveway, or no, a little bit further. Police station right across.
I think.
Yeah.
I think there will be trees screening it.
Right from McDonald's.
So I
I
think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think the view we have right now, and I think you pointed out last time, like when people are walking by, like this is what's going to be seen. So that's why we were focusing on the revisions on this one.
And you addressed it. I really do appreciate, Brenna. Just making sure the rest of the perspective view toward that driveway is going to look, you know, not arbitrary and but complementary maybe, but maybe this is the time to ask questions. So I'm just going to ask these questions and later make comment, but that's what I'd be a question about, right? And Brenna, one more question. It's really about elevation. I think John's correct. If I see it straight on with the rest of commissioners, I think we would address that. And then the other one would be that 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth floor, as you taper away on the left side of that balcony, and then you see the lower step down area that seems to mimic a little bit. Yeah, that area, that pink or beige tone of facade, that whole facade. I want to just make sure as we do this, Brenna, we want you to have a beautiful building here in our town as well. But the articulation between that white, off-white flat plane to that area, right? In the top penthouse, you have it darker, right? But obviously, I understand why you would not do it as dark. But maybe can you look at that and share with us? This is a question. Like, can you additionally articulate verbally what's happening in that plane? And will you address that so it feels like it's not a box with a little bit poche look, but you do something there also, so it feels like you're stepping down there, right, toward that courtyard.
I'm sorry, I'm not 100% following your question.
I just want to ask a question. What is that profile there? Is it flat? And are you just changing the materiality there to create beige to the off-white there?
Yes. So there is a piece of trim that aligns with the top of the solid portion of the balcony. And that provides a transition from the siding, that's the beige wood tone siding. And then we have a piece of hardy trim that'll then transition into the white stucco with those 1-inch reveals is below.
Okay. And it's turning that corner toward the plaza or the courtyard, right? It's
exactly.
Looking around there. Okay. So I guess you have to look at the overall composition of it to look at there. Okay. Thank you. You answered my question on that. Can we see the front elevation of that side there? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a revised version of your drawing A 3.2?
I am going to need a little bit more time to pull that up. I don't have it on my computer right now. So if actually, Nancy, if you could stop sharing, I think, Mark, you might have that pulled up right now. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
let
thank
me
you.
get that here. Okay. So this should be the current one, right? Okay. So this here in the middle is that full elevation.
Perfect.
So,
Thanks, Mark.
so can you point out that particular elevation that we have a question about, how it resolves itself with that further
So-
articulation requested? Yes.
Your previous question about going around the
So-
corner, or this is the second mass here,
Yeah,
right?
so I think what we should mention here is that, you know how we were speaking about in the corner, we divided up the white massing to have that strip of red stucco. So you can see from this view that bay in white has become more defined as a bay.
Mhm.
And then to the right of it is that red stucco. And so that's how we're kind of modifying that transition. So you have that the before that white bay, I think it appeared more massive would be one way to put it. And by adding the two portions of red stucco on either side of it, it kind of breaks down that massing and allows for a transition zone into the vertical metal panel. That's the dark gray.
And
Can
where
Can I
is
ask
that?
a quick? Oh, I'm sorry, Eugene, go ahead.
Sorry about that, Chair. I'll finish. Where is that plane, that gray plane, and that then the further right of it, the porches or the balcony look of horizontality? Where is those plane in plan? Are they further receding from that white one that you see in the corner, or where is that located?
So the red is
Mhm.
the red. Yeah, thanks, Mark. The
Mhm.
red is the most recessed.
Yes. Okay.
So is this the right one? Just gonna,
Correct.
this
Yep.
plan is not the updated plan.
I have it on my screen then.
Okay. Do you want to share? You ready?
Yes, and sorry for the back and forth, guys, but
All right.
yes, I can share.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. So you can see here the revision. So this is the white bay that we're talking about right here. That pops out. This is the red portion.
See.
And then we transition into the metal panel here, and that bay steps back, and you can see this is that low wall of the balcony that Mark was referencing.
Okay, so Brenna, we're looking at
Yes.
the layer with the bay window, the white jut outs. But what about
Right
the
here.
one above the white jut out? Because you're recessing into a sort of a setback, which we requested and you actually did. We appreciate that. But what about that penthouse layer? How do
there
the layers work there?
Right here.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
there it is. So you're gonna actually see the bump out of the gray tone right there above it. Right there.
This is
that
the
corner
gray right
there.
here.
Right.
Yep,
So you're
exactly.
gonna see the side of that.
You-
Right there, right there. Yeah.
You'll see the side. Yep. And that metal panel wraps around. I think it'll be a nice transition.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying. That's a question I had. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so then just following up on this,
Sure.
it appears to me, and I'd like to confirm, if you go back to your elevation,
Yes.
3.2,
Yes.
the red zone that we were talking about, that is to the right of the white zone,
Yes.
it looks like, and I think, I'm at the risk of commenting, I understand that, and I think that's a good move. But I did want to confirm that what you're doing, you're actually taking square footage out of a little bit, a few square feet out of each of the units in the white zone.
Yeah. A minor amount. Yes.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
so that did move over just a little bit compared to your previous version.
Confirmed. Yes.
Okay. And could you show us that corner rendering again so we can just see the whole picture one more time?
Yes, definitely. Oops. Okay. Here you go.
Maybe you could zoom in a little bit on the building. And Eugene, can you see the area that you were asking about?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, zoom in like the chair asked if you can, Brenna.
That's right, that spot
Right
right
there.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right there that we're looking at. So it'll be a shadow there, and return to allow it to be a backdrop
Yeah.
to understand the recess look, right? If you recess or do something there, it would complicate the gesture we're doing at the corner. So I think that's a good move. That's okay. That's all right, I think. Well, sorry about that. Just a question period right now. Oh, so Brenna, can you go
Yeah.
back to that facade also? Sorry, Chair, are you still looking at this too, John?
No,
I'm
go
okay.
ahead, continue.
So follow up to that second question, Brenna, and your
Mhm.
associate, that facade that you see right there, right? That left side of that whole facade right there, right?
Right here.
Yes, please articulate for us what's happening in that plane, and what is your conceptual or poetic idea behind that part, and how does it
It
relate?
has, the whole point is just how it has to wrap. So I think it makes sense to keep that balcony
Mhm.
in the same varying material on that top
Uh-huh.
level. So you can see that's what's right here. And then
Yeah.
it wraps around here.
I
And
see.
then it dies into, again, the same kind of
Uh-huh.
condition where the metal panel wraps around and that siding dies into it on the inside corner.
Okay, it dies into a gray plane that's jutting out, so it dies L-shaped right into that area. When it's
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now,
Mhm.
Brandon, this is just a question. You made it like a little bit more softer landing there. Are you okay with it being bolder or something, so that from a far distant vistas, foreground, middle ground, background, these are the way I experience urban design. But when I see it, would I be able to kind of see it clearly, your concept that it's a juxtaposition versus soft landing and it's just like fuzzy? Are you okay with it being more contrasty there, Brad?
You're asking if I'm okay with
Yeah.
the light color wood siding that we have?
Color or the texture of it, more juxtaposition about it, right? Or recess slightly by
I mean,
inches there, or whatever.
I like this personally because
Okay.
yes, you're seeing it on this facade, but I think it's
Mm.
also important to think about like the residents who are in the paseo in the middle
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
where you start to see this transition, and I think that helps bring this corner down even more. I know we showed that previous rendering where imagining that paseo is quite active, so I think that's a nice transition on the end of this building.
Okay. I was just reading your party here, facade party, where the penthouse has this dark connotation and has a similar roof overhang articulation. And I just saw that as a sort of a opposite hand gesture on that courtyard. I go, oh, clever. It looks
That's
like,
interesting.
yeah, right? To
Yeah,
further
like
break up the massing, Brenna, maybe?
like if that could be dark there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. Other questions for the applicant?
Oh, yes, I do, John. The base, Brenna, I trust your word that you have articulation down at the base there with the trellis and all that. But
Yes.
I need to be making sure that we have the inches or feet of articulation. That's not just a picture plane there, right? Can you show us in Plaza floor plan what is happening there to see the articulation and be able to follow you on that articulation idea? Yeah, right there.
Yeah, so you can see here how you can see the shadow line there, how this plane is pushed back a little bit. And what you're seeing here is that's honestly just looking into the garage. That's way in the distance, this right there. This is a more clear view of what's happening. And you can see the overhang shadow line there too, of how we've pushed that in a little bit. And then here it's in plane with above, by pushing it in on this side is what it's allowing us bay to read as a bay. And
is that a wooden trellis or a metal? Is that wooden trellis or metal?
It'll be a painted metal trellis,
Okay,
but we will do articulation to look appropriate to the building. But it'll just in terms of like maintenance and longevity and having that trellis look good long term, we want it to be a painted metal trellis.
Yeah. All right.
A quick question on this view, if I might.
Sure.
The garage door on the elevation appears to be surrounded with a gray color that looks more plain. the rendering makes it look like there's texture, there's stone there.
Correct. There is stone there. We will make sure that that stone reads when we submit our plans for permit to Nancy. Honestly, we added this in the rendering, which is why you see it there. But we're proposing, it's an El Dorado stone. It has a nice texture to it. It's a tan color. Again, taking cues, honestly, from the Lafayette Library.
Yeah.
Okay, Nancy, if just one a note to yourself to make sure you see that when it comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more question, Chair, and that's a very short question to Brenna. Lighting at night. How are you going to light this at night?
Yeah, so right, these 4 items right here are 4 little sconces on the building. And we don't have lighting up higher on the building. We're primarily focused on entry lighting on this project. And then we do have some landscape lighting as well. You can see a pole right there. I'd have to pull up some different drawings to show more detail on that, but primarily building entry and landscape lighting.
Can I ask a related question to staff? Nancy,
Sure.
Do we require dark sky compliant fixtures in a location like this?
No, it's only in the hillside.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other commissioner questions, now we can open it to public comment.
If you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. There are no hands raised, Chair.
Okay. Well, then the applicant needn't respond to that, and we can go ahead into commissioner comments. Eugene, would you like to start tonight?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair. I think we recognize that this applicant, Brenna, and the team has come back to us with additional rendering of that corner profile that was very much discussed at the prior meeting. I think they have done a good job to elaborate on that and articulate it in the corner as Brenna expressed. My looking at this is that I want to make sure the base is very clear that this is the commitment of the developer and the architect to do this instead of potential value engineering or some other move. So we want to have a very clear control. So I'm just saying is that make sure we have the lighting, paint, material, all that in our application. Of course, it should be the facade that I was talking about as we look at the entire plane toward the street, and then as it goes toward that plaza on the left side of that elevation, I would like to express my desire, at least, this is personal, I'd like to see further articulation by either a material, color, something to make it feel like that whole building flat facade area, which is a beige or white color, off-white color, is actually setting back toward that plaza. And I think for me, at least, it doesn't have to mimic that penthouse look, but it at least gives it a further punch, I think, punctuation to that flat facade. That's one I would like to suggest. But I want to thank the applicant and thanks, Chair, for allowing me to talk first today. Thank you.
Okay. Armin or Kristen, either one of you want to start?
I can go next, sure. I think the project has made great progress. I like the changes to the ground floor. I think the additional articulation using richer texture for the materials and the palettes and the landscape, I think that's made great improvements. I personally question the color of the stucco at the corner, but I understand the reason and the clarity of the massing because it's repeating from the other parts of that massing. So I'm fine with that decision, but I think that is not in harmony with the rest of the material palette at that corner. Besides that, I think the project has made great improvements.
Thanks, Armin. Kristen?
Thank you. Yes. So I also want to thank the applicant for the diligent work to address our ongoing questions that are relating to the the scale and the articulation of the various elements of the project, I think it has come a long way, and it's clear that there's a consistency to the overall design decisions as well as a scale and articulation that works well within the urban context. So I like the progress in the developments, and I support the comments of my fellow commissioners. I'm less bothered by the stucco color, so I'm more inclined to echo Eugene's comments. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I too agree that this southeast corner is a big improvement, and thank you for listening to this. I hope that you all agree, the designer and applicant agree that this is an improvement to the project. I think it is, with only a slight compromise to square footage. It is a nicer building for sure. I think it meets the ground much nicer at the garage, and then meets the street nicer as well. So I do appreciate that you have responded to our comments. So thank you for that. I would ask, and I'm open to my commissioners if they, my colleagues, if they disagree, I would like to see, as a condition of approval, the windows at the siding recessed to the same distance as the windows that are at the stucco. We talked about that detail last time, and it seemed like it would be manageable to do so. So unless my colleagues feel otherwise, I would like that to be added to the resolution for approval.
Yeah.
I think to that point, John, the applicant showed that detail in their previous presentation. They changed that detail and they showed with that trim.
They did.
That's-
My comment was the trim, the extra trim there, I felt was it was not as much of a recess as I wanted to see. If you compare detail 1 with detail 2 on this, there's a very substantial difference there. And I requested that the window be pulled in the same way it is in detail 2 in the detail 1 condition.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with Chair. I would support it. I think that's a good comment, John. Yeah, and
It'll just
south,
help give the facade some depth.
Yeah, especially the south facade. I think that street, Mount Diablo, this building fronts toward south, right? So yeah, I think that would help. Yeah. And so may I also suggest, John, and other commissioners, my comment about making a little more juxtapositional feel for that, what is it? Is it 4th floor, 3rd floor, right below a penthouse on the left side toward the courtyard as it tapers toward that? Is that something you guys are okay with, commissioners? Yeah, that area. I'm not saying make it way different, but I would like to feel like, and when I'm walking on the street, I read more texture or more intellectually exciting composition. I don't want it to look flat. That's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah. So if she's already done it, Brenna's already start that way, I would appreciate if that could be darker or more different material change or slight inches in to show that part has additional layer of readability, intellectual reading capability of that facade.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a stronger difference there, but I do understand, there's a certain number of materials this palette is working with.
Yeah, I know.
And I appreciate the designer's desire to have logical transitions between them. I'm not sure how this wraps around the corner, but this is the same material. It appears to be the same material as is on the balconies. And there is something to be said for a coherence in material transitions.
So is that really the case, Brenna? Oh, sorry, this is commissioner's talking session. Is the material of the balcony the same, exact color, texture, and plank? Is it plank? Is that hardy board?
That's a hardy siding.
Hardy
Yes.
siding?
Yeah.
it's
So
the same?
this material and this material are the same. I mean, this is the same material as two. They're just different colors.
Oh, okay. Then I could be open-minded about reading that texture differently. Okay, I got it. Okay, I'm okay. I don't need to push hard on that, Brenna. All right, thank you.
And
right.
and is this sort of a cove siding look or a flat siding look, tapered? Brenna?
Sorry, say that one more time.
The texture of the hardy plank, could you describe what it is?
Oh, I see what you're
profile.
saying. Yeah, if we're doing the flat or the cedar mill, we'll do the cedar mill finish that has the wood grain texture on it.
And
Okay.
Is
is
what's being
the
proposed.
plane all vertical or does it look
Yeah,
sloped
or-
like
It'll be
side?
yes, it'll have the sloped siding
Mm.
on it. So it's slight angles, a slight
Oh.
So
angle, lap siding.
lopsiding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
lopsiding.
Eugene, I suspect
I'm good. I'm
that there'll
good,
be
John.
more contrast than this rendering suggests.
Yeah, we wanted to
I
look,
agree.
we wanted to make it look natural and organic, so that's good. I think these kind of a conversation has further clarified for me that I don't need to push that issue. Yeah, that's good. All right.
Okay, then thank you, everybody. With that, are we ready to, do one of you have a motion?
I will make a
Can
motion.
I
Oh, no.
can I just want to point out one thing about this detail. We talked about it a little bit last time, and I want to make sure all our expectations are on the same page. So one thing just about the stucco is we're able to wrap that stucco in, so that finish continues. And on the siding condition, we have a piece of flashing here. So what happens when we recess that window is that flashing is going to be more visible. We're not necessarily going to have more siding visible.
So is the flashing going to be the same color and material sense as the window frame itself?
We haven't gone to that level of detail. Sometimes we match the window frame. I think if we were going to recess the window, it would match the trim color.
Yeah, that
But,
works.
but it would be a different
Personally, I'm
material.
open to you resolving that as you see fit. What I would like
Okay.
to see is depth in the facade there, so that we get shadow line and the facade does not feel, shallow and tight. So I'm open to you resolving that as you see fit with the materials you have available.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so to further elaborate on what I think Chair Gray is talking about, we want to see the shadow inside of the frame, not on the outside. I think you're saying that you get the enough sufficient shadow point around the frame, right? The trim, but we want to see where that window plane and the a trim is. That's the difference between these two details, I believe.
Yeah, I understand. I'm concerned about the flashing, having this
Yeah,
more flashing visible look messy,
I see.
because
Okay.
you'll see those, seams on it. You'll see that it's painted. So that's what we're concerned about. But we can look at that detail more thoroughly.
Yeah. I think from the street, that punch that John is asking will make a more effect in reading that facade to be more, punches rather than flat. So I think John is right here. Yeah, we don't want to regret that it just became a flat facade with trims about it, right? Okay, so Brandon, that's your challenge. You're the architect, right? All right. So John, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with all the findings and conditions of the staff report. Additionally, add on a condition, as we discussed, to have a deeper profile as indicating that first detail there. What's that detail with the deeper recess? What is it? 24 inches? I know, not 24 inches. Whatever that first one was, right? The deeper one, right?
If I could suggest, Eugene, the note that I wrote is revised window detail and siding to have the same approximately 4-inch recess as the window with the stucco.
There you go. Chair's so good. 4 inches. All right. Thank you. That's it. So I made a motion to approve this with that additional.
Okay, do we have a second?
approval.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Armin?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Eugene?
Aye.
John, it's aye. So, thank you very much. There is a 14-day appeal period I know you know about, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. So thank you again. We appreciate your responsiveness.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Moving on, the next item on our agenda, and so we have 3 items on the agenda that are 3 different homes on adjacent properties by the same developer. And the last meeting where they were reviewed, the commission chose to look at them one at a time. So I guess we should do the same this time. The first one is DR 12-22. Do I need to read all these numbers? SF 21A, which is the residence at 1040 Upper Happy Valley Road. So who's presenting this one? Renata?
Anna will be with us shortly.
Okay.
Hello. Sorry, I missed some of what you were saying when I was joining as a panelist. I'm to begin on DR 12-22. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Okay. It is loading, and there we go. DR 12-22 is a property on 1040 Upper Happy Valley Road. This is a design review application to demolish an existing single-family residence and construct a new one with a height over 17 feet, triggering design review. The maximum height is 30 feet and 1/2 inch. The property is bordered by a creek at the east property line shown in blue. This is an aerial photo showing the property. The parcel outlines are difficult to see. These parcels have a lot of trees on them. The applicant has also submitted, as you mentioned, for design review at the two neighboring properties to the west, 1046 and 1036 Upper Happy Valley Road. The proposed residents are included in this context map outlined in blue, just for reference. The existing residence is a one-story single-family residence of 2,881 square feet. And the proposed building footprint here is outlined in yellow. The approximate creek setback is shown in blue, and a drainage canal or a channel that was originally calculated as a creek setback is shown here in green. The city engineer made comments on this application that this drainage channel to the south is actually not considered a creek for setback determination purposes. The proposed design shifts the orientation slightly from the existing building, but it stays within much of the existing footprint. And the proposal includes 2 non-protected trees for removal in order to construct a hammerhead driveway, which will accommodate firefighting vehicles and related equipment. So those trees are these red X's here. This is a view of the facade. This is facing east. And to look at the colors and materials, so the color outlined in red here, that is just the main body color. It's a light gray. Previous plans submitted during that study session included a darker gray body color with charcoal trim, and that led to a very dark look. The feedback from the Design Review Commission at that meeting included updating the colors, but still maintaining a natural, neutral look in keeping with design guidelines and the neighborhood character. So the applicant has included these 2 different trim colors, white and a dark, like a medium gray, which add visual interest. So shown here are the south and west building elevations. The south or right elevation shows some, but not much breakup of massing at the second story. But this side of the property is shielded by existing vegetation and is at least 127 feet from any neighboring residences to the south. This reduces its potential visibility impacts. And the west or front building elevation shows a much more breakup of massing with the visual interest added through the varied textures, this standing seam metal roofing here, and the stepped back second story right here. And on the north and east elevations, you also incorporate some more varied textures with different shingle siding and horizontal siding here, and a stepped back second story. Again, assisting in breaking up that perceived massing of the second floor. So these are the site sections. A is viewed from the south, and this includes the neighboring proposed residence at 1036 Upper Happy Valley Road by this same applicant, as well as the other neighboring residences nearby. The proposal includes 5 bedrooms, 5 full bathrooms, and 1 powder bathroom. This first floor contains 1 bed and bath, and the powder bathroom, it also proposes an office, covered front porch, the attached garage, and an enclosed lanai at the rear. On the second floor, that includes the remaining 4 bedrooms and 4 full bathrooms. You can see on some areas where it is stepped back from the first floor. So this is a landscape plan. As I mentioned, 2 trees are proposed for removal. These are non-protected species. 6 trees are proposed for planting as part of the landscape plan. These are identified in green. And this yellow area here is a 580 square foot area of turf lawn. The remaining plantings are perennial shrubs, grasses, and ground covers. So all of the landscaping is low to moderate water use on drip irrigation, with the exception of this turf lawn, which will use sprinkler irrigation. And so I'm just gonna go over a few things on the grading and drainage plans because of the comments I received from the city engineer. So again, I already mentioned that this drainage canal along the south side of the residence, this perspective has been flipped, is not a creek for the setback determinations. The engineer commented that these bubble up emitters that are shown in red circles are putting runoff from the property very close to the creek. And there are other bubble up emitters as part of the landscape plan that dissipate the runoff to landscaping. And all of the runoff from all of the runoff should be dissipated over landscape when possible, as opposed to discharging at the creek. So staff has added a project-specific condition of approval addressing this. In my staff report, there was a condition number 16 to eliminate impervious surfaces proposed within the creek setback after it was established that this area in green is not a creek for the setback determination purposes. Staff recommends eliminating this condition that had been included in the staff report. No impervious surfaces are proposed in the actual creek setback on the other side of the property, so it's no longer relevant. So just to summarize, also staff did not receive public comment prior to publication of the staff report or prior to tonight's meeting. So I'm just going to summarize the project-specific conditions that are to be included with this project. Condition number 15, the city engineer provided comment on one of the applicant's neighboring proposals, asking for details showing how the creek setback was determined. So staff recommends adding this condition of approval to this project as well to address this question of the creek setback determination. And that determination will be verified by the city engineer. And just make a note, they will not have to include that determination for that south drainage channel that borders the southern property line. So condition number 16, staff proposes to actually replace it, not just remove it. So remove the language regarding impervious surfaces within the creek setback, as that is no longer relevant. But staff does recommend replacing that with a condition to update the site plan and grading plan, landscaping plan, to show that the runoff is dissipated to landscaping rather than discharging to the creek and drainage channel. That condition was intended to be included in the staff report, and it wasn't, so I'm proposing to include that. At the initial study session, the Design Review Commission made comments regarding invasive plant species and recommended taking measures to evaluate the creek on the property and eliminate invasive species for creek bank improvement. So staff recommends adding condition number 32 to address this. This would be a condition of final. And to summarize, a staff recommendation is to adopt DRC resolution 2022-16, subject to conditions of approval and update with the updates to condition number 16 regarding dissipation of runoff to landscaping. So that concludes my presentation for DR 12-22, and I am available for questions.
Thank you very much, Anna. Commissioner questions for Anna? I have one.
Okay.
I would like to understand the visibility of what the drawings call the right elevation. Can you show me in plan where that is? And I believe you told me that it's both screened by vegetation and distant from any place to see it. I just want to make sure I understand that.
Sure. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I am going to pull it up on the site sections because I think that does help to show.
Okay, so the site section A shows 1040 Upper Happy Valley with the facade that I'm hoping is screened and distant from everything.
Yeah, so this is the south elevation here, and then looking at it from the west, the site section B does show this side here. So it's the creek bed, or this drainage channel, it's not a creek bed, is heavily vegetated, and then the closest residence is, I think, 127 feet from this property, and this is a little bit higher grade too.
Okay, thanks. That answers my question.
Okay.
The chair,
Eugene, go ahead.
Anna, first time talking with you. Great presentation, very detailed. Appreciate that. That creek or anywhere in that area, besides the physicality of buildings and residential units, are there walking trails or anything like that you were aware of that public may still see the massive facade on that right side?
Yeah, so there is not. The property was evaluated based on the public viewing areas, the Lafayette public viewing areas map, and was determined to comply with that from those public viewing sites. And there are no other public trails or parks nearby.
Good. Thank you for clarifying. Number 2 question, Anna, is well, this is probably not the right time, but I don't know how I can achieve this question if I don't ask this question. The 2 other sites that we'll be looking at tonight, besides this one that you are evaluating, Anna, what I think Chair Gray and I and others here were concerned about last time was that we kind of need to see those 3 sort of like mentally together in a way, because I personally, myself, as one of the commissioners, don't want to see like tract homes, right? Like just a subdivision map and here's the ABC unit and they all look alike except for color change or some rough stone material here and there and hodgepodge. So we don't want it to look like a speculative housing project, right? So that's why I'm going to be asking this question. Although we got to focus on this one only. is this going to be unique to this location and the two other neighbors that's going to be near it, right? We don't want it to look like cookie cutters. Can you
Yes.
address that? Yeah.
Yes, I would say yes. And if you want, if it's relevant, appropriate for like this discussion, I can pull up my presentation for the other two just to give some.
I would appreciate it,
yeah,
even
just
though
to-
it might be little, because it's done by the same architect, good
Yeah.
architect, but another same architect, right? And same time, next to each other. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna go ahead. I think I'm just gonna be able to share one at a time just for the size of my screen sake. So this is
Mhm.
DR 1322. So this is the next one that I'm going to be presenting on. This is a more craftsman style
Yeah. Okay.
home, and then the color on that is different as well. It's a little bit darker. And then finally DR 1422 has a lighter beige with a more kind of
Mhm.
contemporary farmhouse design. So a lot of the design elements of these three proposals were retained from the study session, with the colors being the biggest change, I would say, the biggest visual change from that study session feedback that was received.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Anna.
Okay, thanks. Kristen or Armin, any questions for staff? Okay, then we can invite the applicant to present.
I am promoting the applicant team. They'll join us shortly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think I can better answer some of your guys' questions, and we do have a combined rendering, which I think will help visually aid and tell the story a little bit better. On top of that, I just wanted to confirm before I get started. So I know we want to present these separately because they are three different items. The presentation I prepared actually combines them all together. I think that's how I presented the study session last time because they do relate to one another, and it is probably easier to understand, I guess, the general homes relations with one another if I present it all at the same time. So if you'd like, I could present all three homes now, or if you, Anna, you want to finish your presentation with the other two, we can do that as well. I just want to defer to your choice.
I think we're going to comment on the homes one at a time, but they become in context for each other. So I think it is helpful to see them all together. So why don't you present it how you would best like to do it, and just understand we're going to comment on them one at a time.
All right, sure. I think that works. So let me share my screen and I'll start the presentation. All right, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we do.
Great, perfect, thank you. All right, so before we start, I want to take the time to introduce a couple team members who have also joined us tonight. Jamie Matheron from Dahlin, our architect for all three Upper Happy Valley projects, and Aaron Hollister, one of my colleagues from Thomas James Homes as well. Both which are also available to answer any specific questions if you have regarding architecture or other items. With that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Casper Liu. I'm a representative for Thomas James Homes. And after tonight's meeting, we hope to better inform you of the responses we've made since our last study session. We've taken a close consideration to comments provided by the Design Review Commission and public. To familiarize everyone, we'll do a quick recap of our three home proposal. The current page shows the existing site conditions for all three sites, 1036 having an existing 1,787 square foot home on site, 1040 featuring a 2,881 square foot home on site, and 1046, which is currently a vacant lot. The beginning of our narrative starts with finding inspiration within the neighborhood. Homes in the neighborhood typically have established mature trees to provide a visual audio buffer between neighboring homes. Upper Happy Valley Road is defined by an alley of trees planted by the Upper Happy Valley HOA, paired with ranch-style fencing and traditional fencing. The pictures below are representative of how you would experience Upper Happy Valley Road as you travel northbound. Our proposal captures these design motifs by nestling the homes within the site that preserves the most trees possible. One of our goals is to integrate our home within the trees on site and provide that private enclosed experience that is so prominent in the neighborhood. The neighborhood consists of a diversity of styles, colors, materials, and scales. There's a mixture of one-story homes, two-story homes, and one-story homes, which have had additions. Gabled roof forms are proposed at the second story, in keeping with the language of the other two-story homes in the neighborhood. Some of the homes in the neighborhood are depicted below. Homes that have 2 stories have been highlighted with a yellow ring. Some of the 2-story homes nearby are shown in the pictures below. So this site map gives a better visual of some of the constraints we are limited to and how we arrived at positioning our home and developing their floor plans. The creek is indicated in blue with its setback shown in red, although, per Anna's update, this is now just for drainage. That being said, we did still utilize the city guidelines regarding how we calculated the creek setbacks. We also have a large East Bay mud utility easement dividing the site shown in orange, with the remainder of the site surrounded by mature trees, which are these black outlines on the edges right here. We have 2 site sections which depict the relationships between our homes and the creek and some of the neighboring homes. Section A is a west to east cut showcasing the relationship between 1036 and 1040 to its surroundings, while section B is a north to south elevation showcasing the relationship of 1046 and 1036 with its surroundings. So 1036, one of the items the DRC communicated during our last study session was to have a less monotonous dark color palette among the homes. We revised all our homes to have a revised color palette, creating their own character while still having a relationship with one another. Here's a comparison of our revised color palette shown on top with the original down below. Aside from creating a softer, lighter gray palette with contrasting accents, we've also cantilevered out the second story portion over the garage to create a more dynamic front facade, which you can see right here. For 1040 Upper Happy Valley, we took the dark color scheme away and revised it to a brighter, lighter gray with white accents commonly seen in the Upper Happy Valley neighborhood. El Dorado stone accents the entryway with a dark gray entry door that provides contrast. (1046) Upper Happy Valley features a revised scheme that highlights contrast with its bright whites and black trim. This is also another theme that can be found amongst other Upper Happy Valley homes that have been integrated into our home at 1046.
Can I stop you here for just 1 second? Could you go back?
Sure. Yes.
So when you say bright white, is the wall bright white, or is it just the window trim that's bright white?
So it is the trim pieces on the outside that are white, but in comparison to our previous scheme, this is a brighter white. But in reality, it's probably, you can see it's drift of mist. It's kind of like a tannish gray, I guess. But we do have bright white accents in the trim pieces surrounding the windows and also some of these gable portions here.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So here we have a site perspective. This site perspective better illustrates our proposal to integrate and retain as many existing trees onto our site as possible. Like the other homes in the neighborhood, the 3 homes are enveloped by the existing site trees and nestled into them to create that audiovisual buffer. Here's a second angle of the 3 homes nestled amongst the trees that further depicts the relationship of the homes with its surroundings. And with that, that concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time, and we're open to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner, questions for the applicant? No questions? Okay, then we can go to public comments if there are any.
If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand function. And we have one hand raised, M. Logan.
So public comment, members of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes.
They accepted the promotion to panelist, but I think they're still transitioning.
I'm sorry, did I lose you all?
We hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, my name is Mark Logan. I am the owner of 1050 Upper Happy Valley. And just a couple of comments, and I apologize, my first time doing this, but my questions, I have a couple of questions. Number one, I'm not 100% sure of the trees that are going to be removed. That wasn't 100% clear to me. I know the numbers are, but I'm trying to get a visual on it because I'm very concerned about a 30-foot house backing up to the creek that's going to be looking over directly into my backyard where my swimming pool is and my family relax and whatnot in the summer and whatnot. And so my question would be, if you look at the sight line, my house is 17 and change high, maybe 18, and we're proposing a 30-foot plus home to be looking over. That concerns me greatly, and I don't understand why it needs to be quite so tall. I understand you want to get square footage, but at the same time, none of the other homes are proposed to be that high. I'm concerned about the tree lines. Here again, removing of the trees. A lot of these trees are big oaks, and so they don't offer coverage, if you will, into my property, right? They're beautiful to look at, but if you've got a 30-foot tall building looking over, the sight line is going to be very, very clear into my backyard. So I'm concerned about that. And lastly, and I'm running out of my time, I'm very concerned about driving into Happy Valley, right? So as we all know, Upper Happy Valley is a main thoroughfare into Happy Valley, right? And everyone coming in, to me, it just is not going to be a semi-rural feel, right? You're going to be driving by, you're going to see this huge white 30-foot high house, and it's the first thing that you're going to see when you're driving into Happy Valley. And I don't think it is what we as Lafayette residents want to project as Happy Valley. And 90% of the homes that are 2 stories that were used as in examples of the in the presentation, they're up on a hill and they're not, you can't tell they're 2 stories. So these are lower houses. And take your time. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we understand your comments. Thank you, Mr. Logan.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Renata, is there anybody else who would like to comment?
If you would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature. There are no other hands raised.
Okay. Then the applicant may respond to Mr. Logan's questions and comments, please.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Logan. So I believe you can still see my screen. Is that correct?
No.
Oh, you
Please.
cannot. Okay, no worries. So I think to clarify, the trees that we are removing, you said your address was at 1050 or?
Yeah,
Go on.
this is on section B on your A8. And maybe you'd like to share that for starters.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Yes, 1050, correct, on this section right here?
That's right.
Okay, so yeah, you would be closest to 1046. So going back to, I guess, this perspective here, so your house would be on the back side over here. So most of the trees that we are proposing to remove are actually located in the center. We are not proposing to remove any of the existing mature trees on the backside. So to answer your question about which trees we are removing, it's typically for the development of these homes. So they're smaller trees that are located in the center portion. Specifically for 1046, if that is the house of your that you're most concerned with, you can see the outline of the mature trees are shown right here. These are the ones that we're still retaining. The ones that we are removing, this is the footprint of the house. Some of these right here with the X's, we're removing here just to fill out the landscape and the portion of the house here. So I think that is, hopefully that addresses your concern as far as what trees we are removing to make that a little bit more clear too as well.
So Mr. Liu, just to clarify for everybody here, 1050 is to the north, up on the page on Upper Happy Valley, is that correct?
You mean 1040?
Mr. Logan's
sorry.
house, 1050.
Correct. Yeah, his house 1050 would be up here, correct.
Mm-hmm. So could you go back to the section that shows the two homes?
Of course.
So the distance between the two homes, looks like over 100 feet.
I can confirm the distance if you'd like. We have a context map which typically highlights how far the homes are. So 1050, the closest point would be 76 feet to the property line here. So we have an additional, I don't know, call it maybe 15 feet or so. So it might be 90 to 100 feet. Sure.
And this is Jamie, the architect. I have one more piece of information that may be relevant. If Casper, if you can go back to that angled rendering that you had kind of showing the rear of the property.
Sure.
So in looking at the floor plan as well, much of the second floor is stepped in from that rear edge. So there is that 1-2-story element right in the middle, but that second story element there, that's actually, there's no floor space there. That's a 2-story volume of the great room. So that is an open to below space. So no one, for instance, would be standing right at those windows. The actual floor stops much farther back from those windows. So that's just providing more light and more volume in that great room space. So that would create even more privacy, that no one can be looking right out of those windows towards your yard.
Okay, thank you. Could you respond to Mr. Logan's comment about street presence?
Yeah, so street presence, again, we want to retain most of the mature trees and whatnot. We thought about, the approach of how Upper Happy Valley is designed. I think that was our initial inspiration on the when I talked about the context of how Upper Happy Valley is set up. So again, our goal was to preserve most of the mature trees as possible, and we're still doing so at the front of the property. So we're utilizing the landscape to our advantage as far as that is concerned. On top of that, to address maybe some of the concerns you had earlier too, we didn't make all the houses the same. There is articulation on each one, and there is some character to each one that we want to give. So it did feel like they were thoughtfully placed within the site. So that way they didn't look so consistent or, kind of like a cookie cutter housing that are right next to each other. And this is kind of the placement that we've arrived at. So we're hoping to provide a better drive up experience for not only the residents, but also the ones that pass by too as well.
Okay,
So through the chair, this is to Casper Liu. As you envision a vision of this entire development, right? The three parcels. Is it the intent that the residents and public to perceive it as a collective community of three buildings, though? Because you indicated lower rising tree sizes in the midst of this development area, framed by preserving the large trees around the around the boundary of this three parcel site. Is there a vision to try to keep three of these succinctly different ideas or units to look like a collective community? Is that what's being achieved here, Mr. Liu? Or is it possible for it to each one of the three parcels to also be forested enough to be like in a separate development look, right? That they don't look like they're part of the same development. So as a question, what's your vision?
I believe the vision was to have these relate to one another, but they would
Okay.
still be having their own identity as far as, the development of the homes. So.
Okay.
I apologize.
no worries.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no other public comments and there's no further applicant response, then it's time for commissioner comments. Is there any of you who really would like to start tonight? Kristen, would you?
Sure. So based on our previous review of the project and the comments that we made, I think this is great progress. I found them to be sort of foreboding and mismatched twins before, and I'm quite satisfied with the new color palette and how they each feel distinct. So I think understanding them as different homes is working well. I'm also inclined, this is a follow-up on Eugene's question, to understand them more as homes within the neighborhood rather than homes within their own sort of subdivision within the neighborhood. I think there's inevitably they'll be read as of the same era because they're new construction and there will be that quality to them, but I don't think it feels like they will be radically different. They'll obviously be somewhat different. I am not terribly concerned about privacy between the different properties between this one and 1050 because of what we see in the site section, assuming it's accurate, and it does appear to be based on the site plan with the density of vegetation there. And also I think the choice to make that taller space be a double height space, not have a floor there, that clarification from the architect makes me more comfortable. So I don't have any concerns about the proposed design.
Okay, thanks very much. Armin?
Sure. So I was not on the commission. I was not in the meeting for the previous presentation, and I'm looking at the new renderings and the new elevations. I think there has been a great progress compared to the previous design and the color palette. There has been great improvements. And I agree with Christine that now they are more harmonious with each other. One, or actually a few comments I have is that it seems like the two other buildings that they have darker trims, the material palette and the color palette looks better versus the one that has a white trim with the gray siding and shingles. So that's one comment I have, that if the applicant could study that with the darker trim of the windows, that would be helpful. And then regarding the privacy.
Armin, can I suggest that our comments right now be limited to the first project, the one that Anna presented, 1040?
That is 1040.
Because we'll leave 1040. I don't believe is the farmhouse white one. This is the one that's, if I'm understanding you, it's the It's got a medium gray siding. It does have bright white trim.
It has white trim for the windows. I'm referring to the windows.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, it's my concern is the color of the trim for the windows and the spandrel panel on the front elevation. I think that in terms of the color palettes, I think that it's working better with a darker color or a little bit not as white as shown in these renderings. So that's one, and then that's the main one. And then regarding the privacy, I think I'm not as concerned, but just to understand that what's the sightline from the project, if the applicant could show some of the side photos from those vantage points towards the neighbors, I think that would be just assuring us that there is no privacy concern there.
Okay, thanks, Armin. Eugene?
Yeah, I don't think I need to say more than what Christian and then Armin provided today just now. I'm in total agreement with both of them. I think though, on my one additional comment though, to be more sensitive about Mr. Logan's observation about this area that was much even more rural area as a gateway to a much even more rural area. It's relatively speaking, right? But that how does this vision of 3 in that area present itself, right? That's where I'm kind of looking at thinking. And obviously, Christian already mentioned about that this is in the same epoch development and that all that is good. I am totally in concurrence with that. However, I think that one thought I have is that because I think once you penetrate one layer of landscaping or trees and foliages, then you see inside of it and you see the 3 buildings about each other, right? With less landscaping or less dense landscaping to create a more of a feeling of a coherent community. I guess that's the vision of what Mr. Liu was alluding to. But one thought I had was that in that area of landscaping in between the 3 parcels, if we could kind of think about how to do a duality. One is like, how do we create a feeling of a community? But at the same time, how do we create a feeling that when you step in, that it's still separate, like unique parcels, you know, with its own sensitivity to each other with landscaping, just like we would treat each development with its own sideline issues. Because in the future, a resident moves into one of these units, right? And it's already developed. So I guess there's not much, but I'm looking for a way to address the issue of privacy between the 3 units, maybe 3 units. And I think that has been addressed. Am I right, Anna? Sorry to make this a sort of question period again, but what I'm looking at, Chair and Commissioner, is that we understand that these are 3 happening at the same time, same epoch for sure, right? And I think it's going to look beautiful. But on the other hand, to preserve the character that Mr. Logan was alluding to, semi-rural, even further rural feeling of this upper Happy Valley and further out, even more rural area, these 3 units, they're sensitively treated amongst each other, not to the other people around it, but amongst the 3 of them to feel like they're also a little bit more private and more rural. I don't know, some kind of philosophical thing without a conclusive statement on my part. Sorry about that. But Anna, is there, sorry to do this, Chair. I got to stay on footing. So Chair, that's my comment. If you could allow a staff, Anna, to just answer that, you know, can we position our direction to this applicant to be sensitive to the 3 same time epoch development to each other so that they also feel, you know, a little bit more rural? That's my question. Fuzzy. Sure, I'm done.
Oh, are you asking for Anna to respond to your question?
Am I allowed to respond?
Yeah, I'm asking a question actually, Anna. Anna, the landscaping that we have presented by this applicant in each parcel, we're looking at one application at the time, of course, but that the DMZ zone, or what's that? not the right word, but the borderline between these developments. Can we create a landscaping palette that allows each one of the three to have its own feeling of, you know, isolation, so to speak, but at the same time, there's collective language in the landscaping that it shows that it's at the same epoch.
I believe that the landscaping plans for each of the projects are fairly unique to each project. It's not the same landscaping, both in terms of low, you know, shrubs and ground covers up to the trees that are proposed for planting and retention. I feel like that landscaping does provide that distinction.
Okay, thank you. Done. I'm satisfied with that answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Eugene. I'll make my comments and make them brief, strictly focused on the 1040 house.
Yeah.
I do think that the design is definitely has a nicer look and feel than the last time we saw it. The one aspect of this, the front and the left and the back elevations all seem like a very nice house. And then there's the right one, the right elevation on your drawing A5. The right elevation is a little strange to me. It feels like it is mostly just responding to what's happening inside and has kind of an incoherent look to it. It's not really in character with the rest of the house. It's sort of a leftover. Now, if it's kind of invisible to everything, and maybe it is, I guess we shouldn't care that much, but I would certainly challenge the designer to see if there's anything they can do to make that facade more coherent. And maybe Anna, if you would do me the favor of showing that to the group so they can see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's a flat facade, right, John? The flat facade.
It's a flat facade with windows that have, you know, incomplete relationships with one another. There's a gable that is needed for the rest of the house, but doesn't relate to anything on this facade. It's just a little bit, it feels very unresolved compared to the other facades, which feel, you know, nicely designed.
Okay, I believe I'm sharing that elevation.
There it is. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
So the top elevation on this drawing, I don't think is of the same design caliber as the other elevations. The west elevation, the front elevation, I think is nicely resolved. The only comment I had on this, and I do agree with Armin on this one, the white spandrel panels on the right-hand side of that seem to kind of punch out in a way that I don't really understand or you know, personally, I'm not crazy about the bright white spandrel panels. The white does make sense on the garage doors. I don't know if you've got if you're dark gray, that the front door would look good there, or if there should be less emphasis to it. You know, it's not that visible to outside the property, so I wouldn't say I have a strong opinion on it, but to me, that is the one thing that's a minor comment. But as I said, that right elevation, I would really like to see if there could be some improvement there. It just doesn't feel resolved. But as I said, it's not highly visible to anybody else. So, you know, I'm open to other commissioners' opinions on how important design change might be on that facade.
Yeah.
Can I just ask for your brief comment on that comment of mine? Eugene, you want to start with you?
Yeah, I agree with you, John. You know, normally we wouldn't approve that facade in any other circumstance, but we're relying on heavy vegetation, long distance between the neighbor, and that cross section show that, you know, that sight lines were in that data-driven diagram that, you know, it's okay. But just looking at poetically as an idea on that site, on that facade, it just, like, I agree with you, John, that it just looks like a blanket of windows, right? Patterns. That doesn't mean bad, but it just feels like the rest of the other building has a character about articulation, verticality, a little bit more emphasis on hierarchy and pulling several punched openings or windows together to create another reading of the facade. This one just flat, right? Flat. And so I agree with John. And I think we as commissioners, I think we look at public areas, of course, and all the other things. And once in a while, it's discretionary. We ought to have our opportunity as commissioners to talk about that parcel in its own, right? How does it work together too? So for me, John, I'm in concurrence with you that facade could use some improvement for sure. Now, we're not the architects here to ask them to do exactly this and that, but what are we exactly saying that is not coming together coherently? I think that's the direction I might be able to project to them. One thing I see right now, John, with you, Armin, was that white piece, right, that you guys talk about, the bright white feature. But you know what? I think we can't look fragmentarily. We look at the whole picture. That facade, big picture, it's just flat for me. You could use a lot of work to improve it. But again, normally, do we do that for other applicants? I think we have once in a while here and there, right? But this is relying on the fact that vegetation will be there forever, right? And if it is forever, then so be it. But if not, then it gets exposed and we want to see that facade a little bit better articulated. I would like to see better articulation of the window patterns to be either merged together or create more hierarchical language on it so that I can read that facade. Right now, I read that facade with just windows. Small window, big window. You know, small one's obviously restroom, right? So, okay, you know.
Thanks, Eugene. Armin, do you have an opinion on that?
I agree with you, John. I think even though it's not as visible as the other sides of the building, just given the size of the development and just as general as, you know, design review committee that we would like to have, you know, just set a good precedent for the future designs. I think I agree that, you know, better articulation, either it's at the massing scale, just maybe a little bit of a movement, or even it's within the window pattern or material changes. I think that's going to be really helpful on that elevation.
Thanks, Armin. Kristen?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Thank you for mentioning, especially that spandrel panel on that front elevation. I do think the white pops out too much. So I'll say that first. And then secondarily, I also agree about that other elevation being very flat. For me, what it needs is more relief in how the massing reads in the elevation rather than a change in composition necessarily about the window. So much of the rest of the house has a relief in each elevation from the overall massing. So it is disappointing to not see that in that other elevation. It just feels like it's been sheared off. So I think even just subtle moves to create some elements that project forward would be a big improvement. And I'm more inclined to see it in a massing rather than in a change of materials. If it stays flat and just has a change of materials, to me, that will feel provisional and actually not effective in what we're looking for.
Thank you. And while we don't ordinarily invite the applicant back to present at this time, I think that with this comment, I would like to give the applicant a chance to respond to this comment and tell us if they think they would like to respond to that. With a design revision. So Renata, could you invite the applicant back in, please?
Yes, just a moment.
Hello. Thank you all for your comments and whatnot. These are actually fairly new comments to us. You know, had we heard, you know, the unsatisfaction with that elevation, we probably would have definitely had the opportunity to revise that and take a second look at that. That being said, you know, we focused on a lot of the comments that were given to us last time regarding obviously the color, the relationship between the homes. So I want to make sure that those did work well with one another. You know, we're at the stage where now, you know, we would have to think about, you know, the comments about revising mass since we have, you know, I guess finalized some of the layout of this home. We can definitely potentially look at revising maybe some of the windows and whatnot, but you know, these are definitely things that we can take a look at. But as far as the massing is concerned, you know, that is definitely a new comment for us. So, you know, that's something we can definitely think about. And we understand your concerns about that too as well. But as I mentioned, you know, these are new comments compared to the last study session that we had with some of you.
So, and since I'm one of the ones who suggested the massing more strongly, to me, it's not a significant change in massing. It's like maybe one part on that one facade like pops out a foot. So it's not really, and I do hear what you're saying about it being late in the game for changes, but I'm more looking for something at the scale of a bay window, not necessarily a bay window, but I don't think it needs to be a major change. I think it would be a subtle change. So.
Great, thank you. We'll definitely take note of that.
Okay, and then the other comment was just the one color choice for the spandrel that three of us at least felt that the bright white spandrel panels there were calling attention to something that wasn't really a strong element that wanted to have that kind of attention.
Yeah, color, I think, shouldn't be as big of a problem. That one is definitely something we can definitely address and take a look at one more time. So color is something we can revisit for sure.
Okay, then with that, we do have a draft resolution here. And we may want to add a condition. I would suggest that the applicant has been highly responsive, and I wouldn't want to, my opinion anyway, if you all agree, I wouldn't ask them to require them to come back to us. I would like to add, well, let me allow one of you to propose a motion. How's that?
Let's do it. Armin or Kristen?
I have a question, John. I 100% agree. They've been responsive. The design is solid. I don't want to request that they come back to present anything to us. So I'm inclined to propose an approval, but I don't know how to propose a motion that would have an open-ended, like, oh, please consider changing this elevation.
Renata, were you raising
If I
your
may,
hand?
Chair, yeah,
Yeah.
Please go
I'm happy
ahead.
to jump in. So the commission can choose to approve the project and add a project-specific condition. Typically, this kind of thing would be handled prior to building permit issuance, where some designee, be it staff, the DRC chair, or another commissioner, would review and approve the specific modifications you are seeking. And in the motion, we would ask that you be as specific as possible about kind of the elevation and the intent of that change.
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
So I'll propose a motion, and I welcome comments from my fellow commissioners to elaborate, but I propose a motion to approve this this design with a project-specific condition to further develop. I don't remember which elevation that is. Sorry.
The drawings called it the right elevation.
Right side.
To further develop the right elevation to express more depth, more spatial depth. Is that I don't want to be so specific as to say like move this window or that window, but I don't want to be too vague. So I don't know if that's too vague.
But we want to break the plane. We want to break that plane. It's too flat. I think that's
and
whether it's
improve the
inch,
hierarchy of the composition.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like you were very articulate about that, Kristen. You're not looking for a whole room to cantilever out, but you're talking about inches maybe in the detailing, right? So they don't mess up the program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe
go
we
ahead.
want to add the revisions to the color on the front elevation in some specific areas.
So while I don't love that white spandrel panel, I wouldn't, to me, that's less of a big deal in some ways because I feel like things, homeowner changes that down the road or something. But I mean, I guess we could request modifying the color palette to minimize the dominance of the spandrel panel on the front elevation.
Mhm. That sounds like a solid motion with findings and conditions. I will second that motion because that's legit. All right.
Renata, will you remember that? I feel like that was a patchwork of emotion.
Yes, we also have a recording, but I think Anna's taking notes. Yeah. And
I will-
Okay.
Can you please specify if these changes are to be reviewed by a designee of the DRC or who shall approve these changes when they're presented?
Chair, you want to appoint someone or?
Kristen, would you be willing to do the review with staff?
Sure, happy to do that.
Okay, so there's a
Okay,
motion.
all
And
in
there's a
favor
second.
then?
Okay.
Kristen,
Aye.
Armin,
I,
Eugene,
Aye.
and John is aye. So I feel like we've reviewed all three, but actually we need to start the second one.
Yeah.
Anna, would you like to take us to project number 2?
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to move on to DR 13-22, and this one is 1036 Upper Happy Valley Road. The project is located here, outlined in green. This design review application is to demolish an existing single-family residence, construct a new one of 4,023 square feet. The maximum height is over 17 feet. It is coming in at 27 feet 10 1/2 inch. This is an aerial photo showing the location of the current residence. And again, the future proposed residences at the neighboring sites are included here for reference. The proposed is outlined in green. The existing residence is single family, it's 843 square feet. It has a detached carport that is also proposed for demolition. It is an existing non-conforming zoning condition of this property line here. This creek, or originally calculated as a creek, is actually a drainage channel that runs along the south side of the property. The proposed building footprint is outlined in yellow. It expands beyond the existing building footprint, but is cited on the property, as we have seen in the applicant's presentation. It's cited to minimize its impact on the existing trees on the property, and remain in the constraints that exist on the property. The proposal, or they are proposing to remove 3 trees, non-protected species, 2 of which are located within the building footprint and 1 within the proposed driveway footprint. The driveway is going to be relocated slightly. This is a rendering of the front of the residence. This is facing east, so this is this property is accessed by the street, by Upper Happy Valley Road. So this is essentially a view from the road. The main body color proposed, which is outlined in red to highlight it, is a muted beige. The previous plans that we saw included a very dark gray body color with less articulation of that facade. So the feedback was incorporated from that initial study session and is shown here. And then we can get to the elevations here. So shown are the west, so the front facade, and the south building elevations, the variations in the roof line, the siding materials. There's a stepped back upper story. I'll work to create, and this pop out at the second story that was highlighted. Create some shadow relief and help reduce perceived massing. And the east and north elevations also incorporate the variations in siding materials and roof lines with a portion of the second story stepped back, lending additional visual interest. So site section A is viewed from the south. This includes the neighboring residence, which is to be proposed, which we just looked at 1040 Upper Happy Valley. And site section B includes the proposed residence at 1046 Upper Happy Valley to the north. The proposal is for a 5-bedroom, 5 full bathrooms. The first floor contains 2 bedrooms and 2 full baths, and the second floor contains the remaining 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. This area to the back is called out as a lanai on the plans. I believe it's not enclosed, it's like a patio. And looking at the landscaping, so as I mentioned, 3 trees are proposed for removal because they are located within the footprint for construction. The applicant is proposing to plant 7 trees in their landscaping plan, along with other shrubs and some perennial ground cover, as well as a small turf yard, 720 square feet at the back of the house. So all of the landscaping is low or very low water use on drip irrigation, the turf lawn, and 2 Japanese maples, which are these smaller trees proposed, are moderate water users. All other trees are proposed for retention and no construction or.
I'm sorry, Anna, could you go back one?
Yes.
So the small trees you said were Japanese maples. Did I miss it? What are the other trees proposed to be?
I did not call that out in the presentation. I don't have that in front of me now.
Okay, the applicant can answer. That's fine.
Yes. So the city engineer commented again that the drainage channel along the south end property line is not a protected creek. It does not require a setback determination as originally indicated. Staff had originally recommended a condition of approval to include cross sections on the construction drawings showing how the creek setback was determined. That condition is no longer relevant, and staff recommend eliminating that condition. So we will get to that when I summarize the project specific conditions at the end. A condition to add, similar to the project I presented on previously, is that all runoff should be dissipated over landscaping when possible, per comments by the city engineer. These red circles show bubble up emitters, putting runoff really close to the bank of the drainage channel. And another comment from the city engineer called out that construction of walkways and driveways within the public right of way, which are shown in this red square, shall be constructed using asphalt and not concrete. So staff recommends or has recommended adding a project specific condition to address this. In addition, as recommended by the city engineer, and staff are in agreement to recommend implementing a condition to reconstruct the existing, there's a narrow pathway and asphalt berm along Upper Happy Valley Road as part of the driveway reconstruction to construct the existing pathway and asphalt berm to current ADA standards. No public comment was received prior to this presentation or prior to my staff report publication. So I'm going to move on to my summary of the project specific conditions. Condition number 15 is to show that the runoff is being dissipated over landscaping rather than being discharged to the drainage channel. Condition number 16 recommends to update the plans reflecting the construction of walkways and driveways within the public right-of-way to be constructed of asphalt rather than concrete. Condition number 17, staff recommends to update plans reflecting the reconstruction of the walkway and existing asphalt berm along Upper Happy Valley Road to ADA standards. Condition number 18 is the condition that I would actually like to eliminate from my staff report proposal. The city engineer has stated that the creek is not required to have a creek setback determination. So I'd like to remove this requirement for a creek setback determination. Finally, condition number 34, it echoes the condition from the previous project to conduct vegetation management and invasive species removal. I would like to update the language of this proposed condition to change creek to drainage channel, removing invasive species and improving the bank stabilization of the drainage channel will still have a beneficial outcome for the creek on the neighboring properties where this same applicant has proposed or has submitted their design review proposal. So I would like to keep this condition and change the language of creek to drainage channel. So staff recommendation is to adopt resolution 2022-17, subject to the conditions of approval, and recommends that the commission direct staff to remove condition number 18 regarding the creek setback determination and to update the condition number 34 as it relates to the removal of invasive plant species in the drainage channel. So that concludes my presentation and I am available for questions.
Thank you very much, Anna. Questions for Anna from commissioners? So I have one question and I don't know if you'll be able to answer it because well, my question is, do we know, is there a consistent species in the tree alley that is planted along Upper Happy Valley Road? And I don't know, you may not know that and the applicant may not know that, but that will be relevant to the two that have Upper Happy Valley Road frontages.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I will, if the applicant knows, we'll defer to them to answer that question.
Okay, any other questions for Anna? All right, thanks, Anna. With that, we can invite the applicant to present. And maybe Mr. Liu, you've already done kind of all of them, but you may speak as you'd like.
Great, thank you. I unfortunately do not know the answer to the type of trees on Upper Happy Valley Road, but I can answer the type of trees that we are proposing, the other ones. So aside from the Japanese maple, the two front trees are a sweet Fuyu persimmon tree, and then the other ones towards the rear are a Chinese pistache.
And I can you answer how much water use those trees require? I think the Japanese were moderate. Are those low water use trees?
Oh, yes. Sorry. If you asked that question, I was joining as a panelist, so I might have missed that. It's the other trees, the Fuyu persimmon is low and the Chinese pistache is low as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to present on this is 1036, the 1036 house?
I do not have any new material. Thank you.
Okay. Then with that, other commissioners' questions to the applicant. Okay, then it's time for public comment. Renata, if you could invite public, may speak for up to 3 minutes.
If you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature in your Zoom window. There are no hands raised.
Okay, then I think we can go straight to commissioner comments. Any commissioner want to start? Armin, would you like to start this time?
Sure. I think this the design is very well conceived. I support the stepping of the massing, the materials, the proportions, and the ratio. The windows to the wall, and I think there is a very strong rhythm of the windows and openings on the front elevation, and I'm in support of the design as it's presented tonight.
Okay, thanks, Armin. Eugene?
I don't have much more to add. I think I'm supportive of this applicant. And all 4 facades are broken in planes, and I think that's one we were talking about the other one. So there we go. I have no other comments here.
Thanks, Eugene. Kristen?
I concur with my fellow commissioners. I think that this is well conceived. The massing is varied but cohesive. The color palette works and the scale feels appropriate, and I support the project.
Thank you very much. Well, I too like the house, and I don't have any substantial comments I would offer. The only thing that I would offer for this, and I'll have the same comment for the other house that fronts on Upper Happy Valley, is I would like to see the landscape plan reestablish and continue the alley of trees that is on Upper Happy Valley Road. I don't know what species they are. I'm not sure if they're a species that the city considers a desirable tree or not, but I would like to ask the applicant to work with staff to come up to, if we could look at the landscape plan, the 2 front trees that flank the driveway, I would like to see those relocated and the species changed to rather than having to do with the house. I think they should have to do with the public space and help define Upper Happy Valley Road as a community roadway. So Anna, would you mind putting the landscape plan back up for us, please?
Sure. So I don't have the full plan set, but this is the
So
slide that I shared.
the 2 trees that are flanking the driveway, I would
Mhm.
suggest get moved closer to the street and try to establish an appropriate species and spacing to establish reestablish the alley of trees on Upper Happy Valley Road. And I would be open to the applicant working with staff to do that.
Okay.
And that is the only comment I have. I think this is a nice house. So unless other commissioners take exception to that comment, I would like to add that as a project-specific condition of approval.
Go for it.
And with that, do we have a motion?
I motion to approve this project with the project-specific approval that John just said.
And I'll second that motion.
All right, Anna, do you have that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, then all in favor. Armin?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Eugene?
Aye.
And John is aye. Okay, thank you very much. Shall we move to the third house, which is 1046 Upper Happy Valley Road?
Okay. Okay, so we are looking at DR 14-22 at 1046 Upper Happy Valley Road. 1046 Upper Happy Valley Road is, just to note, this parcel was referred to in the notice of public hearing as an unaddressed parcel because it is vacant. The parcel is actually assigned the address number 1046. So the staff report contained an update to reflect this, and I will be using that address number in my presentation. So the applicant is seeking design review to construct a new 4,893 square foot single family residence on a vacant lot, 2 stories with a maximum height of 30 feet 3 inches. The property includes a creek that transects the northern property line as shown in blue here. This is an aerial view of the vacant property at 1046 Upper Happy Valley Road. This also shows the proposed residence at 1036 and 1040 Upper Happy Valley Road of the same applicant that we have seen. The lot is currently vacant with the creek running along the northern property line. The approximate creek setback I have shown in blue. There is an existing driveway along the southern property line, which provides access to 1040 Upper Happy Valley. Because this is a vacant lot, all existing trees greater than 6 inches in diameter are protected regardless of the species. And I will get into more information on the tree permit requirements in a little bit. So the proposed building footprint outlined in yellow is sited on the area of the property with a few trees. While it is cited to minimize its impact on existing trees, there are 3 proposed for removal, all 3 of which are protected because of the property being vacant. One of these trees recommended for removal is inside of the building footprint, and the other 2 were recommended for removal for the arborist report. They are very close to 2 other large trees on the property with a lot of lean. So the residence will be accessed via the driveway along the southern portion of the property line. It will not be accessed directly from Upper Happy Valley Road. This is a rendering of the front facade. So this is a south elevation of the building. The main body color proposed is this light beige with white and black or charcoal trim proposed. The previous plans, this is a change from those previous plans submitted for the study session with the dark gray and black trim. So the colors have been updated to maintain a neutral color in keeping with the design guidelines and to distinguish them from the other proposals. So shown here are the south and east building elevations. The south elevation, which is the front facade, includes gabled dormer windows at the 2nd story, as well as this stepped back 2nd floor with standing seam metal roofing proposed. These elements, combined with the variation of materials, create visual appeal and break up the massing. In addition, this stepped back 2nd story on the east elevation also reduces massing. The north and west elevations also show some variation in roof line with the stepped back second story. The site sections, as viewed from the, I think this 1040, we've seen these site sections thankfully with the other buildings. I don't know what happened, but this is missing the proposal at 1040. But again, it is showing the perspective, including the proposed residences by the same applicant. The proposed residence includes 5 bedrooms, 5 full bathrooms, and 1 powder bathroom. The first floor contains 3 beds, 3 full baths, and the powder bathroom. It also proposes an office, flex space, a covered front porch, and a covered patio at the rear, as well as the attached garage. The second floor is stepped back virtually on all sides, contains 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in the upstairs. As the architect pointed out, this is the area that is open to the main or the first floor below. These windows at the north of the property are where she was referring to that no one can look out these second floor windows to neighboring properties because it is stepped back so far. So 3 trees are proposed for removal, requiring 15 mitigation trees to be planted per the city tree protection ordinance. The applicant has proposed 16 new trees on their landscaping plan and has proposed alternate species than those being removed in order to cover the mitigation requirements. Typically, the same species of tree is to be planted that is being removed, but these alternate species have been proposed. So the applicant is proposing 4 vine maples in orange, 3 manzanitas shown in red, 6 redbuds, which are shown in purple, and 3 valley oaks shown in green to replace a fig, incense cedar, and valley oak that are being removed. All landscaping proposed is low to moderate water use. And I will get into comments made by the city landscape consultant regarding the mitigation proposals. So the city's landscape consultant provided some comments regarding the locations of the mitigation plantings, and staff have recommended project-specific conditions to address these comments. First is to consider relocating the manzanitas, red, as they will likely receive additional water being located slightly downgrade and next to the turf lawn, which may provide more water than the drought-tolerant manzanitas require. Second was to consider spreading out the valley oaks, allowing for a greater future canopy spread. The landscape consultant noted that these are acceptable mitigation plantings, but to change the location as they can get very large. The third comment was to reconsider the location of the vine maples, as these are a riparian species which can suffer in 90-degree heat. They may thrive if located along the creek bank to the north of the residence, and recommended relocating them to that location. And also noted that that was an acceptable mitigation, alternate mitigation. So staff recommendation is to accept these alternate mitigation plantings with the conditions to update their proposed locations on the landscape plan. Similar comments from the city engineer as to the two other projects. The bubble up emitters show runoff being discharged towards the creek and should be dissipated over landscaping. Staff has included a condition to address this. Similar to the proposal to the south at 1036 Upper Happy Valley, the city engineer recommended reconstructing the existing pathway and asphalt berm along the street frontage to bring it to ADA standards. A condition has been included to address this comment. And finally, a comment or condition is that no impervious surfaces shall be proposed within the creek setback area. It's a very small area on the plans here that is a concrete walkway. So this is a project-specific condition to ensure that if this is within the creek setback, it shall be updated to be impervious surface. So to summarize my conditions, I'm going to move into these because, again, similar to the other two projects, no public comment was received. So condition number 15 is to dissipate land runoff over landscaping rather than discharging it to the North Creek. Condition number 16 is to update the plans showing no impervious surfaces proposed within the creek setback area. Condition number 17 is to reflect the comments made by the city engineer to reconstruct the pathway and asphalt fronting along Upper Happy Valley Road to ADA standards. Condition number 17 is to include cross sections showing how the creek setback determination was made, which will be verified by the city engineer. Condition number 29 relates to the tree mitigation requirements. The minimum requirement is based on the calculations, the diameter of the trees being removed. The property owner shall plant 15-gallon mitigation trees. The applicant has proposed additional trees, but this is, and also the applicant proposed some of the trees as larger 24-inch box sizes. This is the minimum requirement. The next condition relates to the location of those mitigation plantings in the landscape plan. Staff recommends accepting those alternate species being proposed for the required mitigation plantings and recommends updating the proposed location of the plants of the trees per the city landscape consultant's comments. Finally, condition 36, because of the creek on the property, similar to the neighboring properties, this recommendation is for the property owner to remove the invasive species in that creek on the property. So staff recommendation is to adopt resolution 2022-18, subject to the conditions of approval specific to the project. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Commissioner, questions for Anna?
No.
So I have one on my same theme. So looking at the landscape plan, actually the survey plan for this site, I was able to identify the alley tree species. It is called the London Plane, which is similar to a sycamore. That's a tree, and I don't know if either Anna or Renata might be able to answer this or take it back for a later answer. Is this a tree that the city supports as a desired tree for planting?
To my knowledge, it's not included in the list of protected species.
It's listed as protected on the existing condition site plan. It's noted as protected. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know.
So there are multiple kinds of conditions that would make a tree protected. One is the species. If it's listed as a protected species in the tree protection ordinance, Another being if it's a tree with a diameter greater than 6 inches on a
Okay.
vacant lot, which is this one, or if it was preserved or planted as part of a previous discretionary application. So in this circumstance, it's protected for the second reason.
So would the city find it acceptable to plant this type of tree?
That could be verified by the landscape consultant. If I think if the applicant wishes to make changes to the mitigation plantings beyond what has already been recommended by the landscape consultant, we would want to bring it back to them. And so that could be something that we also
Yeah, and actually this relates to the house that we were just looking at, where I was suggesting use the same species if possible. So the London, so on the 1036 house, my question for staff is if the London plane tree is appropriate as far as a desirable tree to plant new, that would match everything else that's there some years from now.
Okay.
Other than that, I have no questions. So the applicant is invited to present if Mr. Liu or Mr. Hollister or Mr. Matheron, you have anything to say?
I don't believe we have any new material, but thank you all for your comments.
Okay, then we can open to public comments. Renata, public may speak for up to 3 minutes.
If you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. We have Marianne Ewing, followed by Mark Logan.
Hi, I'm Marianne Ewing, and I'm across the way. I'm sorry, I had a mix up on getting on here, but anyway, I'd like to say what I had said before in the other meeting. My concern is that the design and still the design that has been presented is still very ho-hum for the impact that it is on coming down that upper Happy Valley Road, and the impact of those 3 houses is significant. It's better than it was, definitely, but it's still, the houses don't have the impact that I feel and that the area definitely deserves. I'm disappointed that there isn't the opportunity that the architects took that opportunity to really run with it and make it some awesome buildings. With that said, it is different. It's better than it was. On the planting, I just like to ask, you guys are talking about an ADA walkway on Upper Happy Valley Road, and I'm very confused by that because that has not been an ADA accessible walkway. And then once you get off of it, you try to get on it, it would be just a short section. Is your intention to change it so that it's all ADA accessible up and down Upper Happy Valley Road? So that's my comment. I'm not thrilled with the design. I don't know what y'all said about it earlier, but I think that still needs improvement.
Okay, thanks very much.
And next, I will promote Mark Logan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can.
Great. So first off, I truly want to thank all of you guys for doing what you do, because it's a lot. And I truly just want to let you know that I appreciate all the minutia that you dive into. So with that said, and with that thought in mind, I just want to, and it sounds like it's a done deal, the 30-foot, I get it, setback, I get it, but we're setting the stage for entering Happy Valley with a very small setback on this house off of Upper Happy Valley Road. And to me, visually, I think it changes the whole situation. So that's my second point. Third point, on the tree removal, I know that it's scheduled for 3, but on the tree listing, there's also 2 other possibles. And I'm wondering who dictates that, meaning that number 19 is a possible removal. And I'm wondering who has the final say on all of that. Number 4, I realized that the 30 feet looking over the backyard in one section is skylights, for lack of a better word, but realize there's also an exercise room and realize there's also the TV room upstairs. So I'm assuming those are going to be used quite often. Here again, I'm sure there's nothing that can be changed. And last, I do question the context map. I don't know if it's actually correct to where 1046 is going to be and where my house is. It seems here again, 1046 to me, it's 10 foot off of the road. The setback is very, very short indeed. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you all for everything you guys do. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Renata, anyone else?
If you would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand. There are no hands raised.
Okay, then to respond to the comments received, maybe Anna and Renata, if you don't mind, could we answer the question about the ADA walkway?
Yes, so typically the city is not able to, would not undertake kind of the wholesale reconstruction of that walkway. And so as development applications come in along that pathway, we would work with the applicant to upgrade that facility to meet ADA standards and create greater accessibility. But it is not currently in the city's capital improvement plan to create a whole ADA accessible stretch. However, we plan to work towards that as opportunities arise.
Okay, thanks. I think the other questions were for the applicants from the 2 people who spoke.
Yes, thank you for your comments and feedback regarding the setback. We designed these homes to definitely fit within the city guidelines. So, these are the guidelines that are provided by the city, and we made sure that we adhered to them. Regarding the distance on the context map, we used, our civil engineer has provided these documents to us, and it's, they go out and measure the site. And on top of that, we make sure we use the latest tax maps and things like that as well for survey for existing homes too. So, the distance is going to be as accurate as if you hired a survey team, because that's the typical teams that give us this information here too. So regarding the design, thank you for your comments on that. I know it's not going to satisfy everybody, but we do try to update the design regarding the elevation and some of the material choices, as well as the combination with the colors too. So this is our current proposal, but thank you for your feedback.
So regarding the setback question, I'm looking at your drawing A2, and it shows 25 feet as the required setback from the right-of-way, and the house, one corner comes very close to that. Another corner comes a few feet away from that. But the entire house is certainly more than 25 feet from the bounds of the right-of-way. And the bounds of the right-of-way is almost exactly in line with the center line of the tree alley. So, to address Mr. Logan's question, it's 25 feet definitely off the perceived roadway. Were there any other questions? Any of you who are taking better notes than me?
Well, one question was from Mr. Logan again about the 30-foot high. To the applicant, they did address by saying that that is really a two-story vaulted ceiling for some family room type of venue. But I think Mr. Logan might be alluding to that perimeter beyond that space. Are there any other activities that you could still see through that area, that space, to other adjacent rooms? So Mr. Liu, can you further clarify to assure our residents about this issue about 30-foot high, that window opening, and it is 30 feet high. And so can you just reiterate for us that question that arose again about that room, that space?
Sure. So the 30 feet high is measured to the highest point of our building, which is basically the top of the ridge.
Mr. Liu, sorry to interject. Do you have a drawing? Do you have like a cross section or a maybe at this point elevation or floor plan if you don't have to?
So A8 shows the context, shows the two houses.
I want to show Mr. Logan this, not us. We have that packet, but the public may not visualize.
Yeah, I'm suggesting that we share A8 on the screen.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Thank you.
And so, Mr. Liu, were you pulling that up?
Yes, I can pull that up. Yeah, I wasn't sure if somebody else was going to pull it, but let me share that 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. And why don't you zoom in, if you don't mind, to 1050 and 1046?
Sure. Yeah, so I guess to address the 30-foot height, it is actually to the top of the ridge here. So this is the highest point. So it's actually away from 1050. So on this side, obviously it's lower. The window lines are not quite as high. They're not going to be at 30 feet. I believe we have a 10-foot one ceiling height on the first, and then we have some structure in between, and then a 9-foot one for the ceiling height on the second floor. So these windows, are going to be lower than that too as well. I believe it's an 8-foot header height for most of these windows. And all the windows that do face 1050 that would be occupied, as our architect mentioned, were recessed. On this side, I believe we have a gym, which is further recessed from this elevation here. And on the other side, which you cannot see, I believe is the loft too as well. So both of those rooms that, if they were to be occupied, are also additionally further away. And the height, as I mentioned, is towards the back side, not towards the side facing 1050.
So Mr. Liu, the spaces that Mr. Logan is concerned about, his house has a courtyard toward you, right? Is that right? Outdoor patio, and probably, I don't know, that's Mr. Logan type of question, but I just want to be as sensitive that we responded to Mr. Logan and that he's comforted by what moves you're doing for him to be able to live there peacefully there and have happiness. So going back, you said you have gym there and you have this loft space. The trees are pretty dense there, I think. But I don't know, during winter time, all the leaves fall apart and you're gonna see through maybe, right? Are these deciduous trees or are they evergreen? What are these types of trees that are at your edge? Will they stay full throughout the year? Mr. Lee?
I am not an arborist, so I cannot confirm that the leaves will either stay or fall off. So I will have to come back to that question. but I cannot confirm if the leaves will stay or fall off for the trees that are here. But I do know that there are quite a few, and I can give you an outline or depiction of how many trees there are actually. So these are all the trees that are here, each one being indicated by these numbers here. So if you could imagine, the second story to be somewhere up here, and then the 2-story volume, and then the other one right here too as well. So we have quite a few trees between both properties.
Well, okay, thank you. Well, that's a question.
So drawing A2 has them labeled by species. I see some deciduous and some evergreen.
Yeah.
One of them is a coast live oak that, of course, stays nice and leafy. One of them is a valley oak, which loses its leaves. But I'm not picking through completely.
Right. So, Mr. Liu, in the sideline where your window or things that are high up there, second floor, 30 feet, obviously that's the peak, but in that sideline toward Mr. Logan's house, you need to demonstrate that you got potentially like evergreen or something that will be forever protecting some privacy as best you can, right? We're not God here, but doing the best you can, but it needs to help preserve his privacy, right? So that'd be okay. Sorry, this is a question period. All right, that's my question.
So my question, as we look at this drawing, right near the word appears to be a gap between some trees there.
Yeah.
Could one of your mitigation trees go in that zone and be one that does not lose its leaves?
Yes, I think that's reasonable. And I think one of the conditions that you mentioned earlier was to possibly relocate the valley oak trees, which seem to have a large coverage, which could possibly be, infilled here. We can definitely adjust the landscape plan to do that as well as moving some of the trees, I don't recall the exact species, into the riparian area as well. We could take a look at filling this area as well too. So
yeah, the valley oak is a deciduous tree. And they're a nice tree, but they're not good for privacy year round.
Right. And then the other concern I have too, Mr. Liu, sorry, this is a question period. At night, you're going to obviously have light on, right, Mr. Liu, right? The residents in your new property will enjoy that property and the lights will turn on. So there'll be light at night through the trees, probably, maybe. Okay. So that's a question I have too. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Eugene. Other questions for the applicant? Okay.
I have one question.
Okay, Armin, go ahead.
Sure. I want applicant if they could explain some of the logics about choices of the materials for the roof and the sidings. Maybe the architect could explain that better.
Sure, yeah, I can speak to that. So in the idea of giving each home a little bit of its own character, as we discussed earlier, the concept for this home was to be more of that contemporary farmhouse. And so that's where the board and batten siding comes into play. And that's a little bit different than more of the craftsman style that's expressed in the other home on the other side. And then there's a blend of the two kinds of roof materials that we have, the composition shingles for most of the roof, and then an accent of a standing seam metal roof in the front, which also brings in that sort of contemporary element to the farmhouse.
Okay, and I realize actually we kind of had questions that we started in the applicant's response to public comments. But if I think the applicant has answered questions, and then this is the time for commissioner comments.
Okay.
So any of the three of you want to start or?
I'll start. I think that I'm sensitive about the comments from Mr. Logan. I forgot Mary's last name, but the two residents. First question, I think Armin, you addressed it by asking a more question, and I think the architect answered it with more poetics about what the idea concept was, because without that, it's just a cookie cutter project. So there's a farmhouse imagery, right? So hopefully that shaped it, and with a different sort of stylistically varied types. To be honest with you, I was looking for a modern one really high contemporary modern language one, maybe a Mies van der Rohe with more of a cottage style somewhere. But anyways, that's a personal preference, right? So good, we got some ideas about that idea that the architect derived to create unique properties here, and particularly this one, that last one, third one that we're looking at. So for me, the privacy is an important issue. Okay, so I will, as one of the commissioners, recommend that this applicant or this site provide more evergreens or more full around the year plants or tree in that strategic location. We're not talking about whole area, right? But those areas that Mr. Logan needs to have, right, to make sure he's protected from these privacy issues. And then also, I think we always have it night sky, right? And the lighting from these houses cannot pollute the adjacent property with all kinds of light everywhere. So making sure the light coming out of these rooms up on the second floor do not just like go, you know, and become like a lantern. We don't want a lantern here, right? We want to kind of subdue it. So those are concerns I have. So for me, I think the neighbors' concerns are ones that I'm concerned about here. And then the third one I am concerned about is each time we talk about each one of these applications tonight, there's been a very clear concern about how the vision of that upper Happy Valley entryway looks like and feels like after this. But I think that the applicant has addressed that by talking about landscaping. And I think also our chair has made it more clear that we would like to preserve the character of that tree-lined LA along that street. So I think we address it that way. So my comments about privacy, making sure we have more trees there that are evergreen-like in that strategic location. And the building itself, I don't think we can, we can make more size reduction, but they are working within the volume of our code and planning, and they have the right to build it up that way. So I don't know if we can request any further reduction or anything like that. Okay, that's it. My observations today.
Thanks, Eugene. Kristen, would you like to go next?
Sure. To follow up on that, I concur with what Eugene has just said. I support all of that. I do have one additional comment that relates to the design of the house, so more specific to it and its massing. I find most of it well conceived and proportional, but on the front elevation, those 3 dormer windows, their proportions seem a little too tall and skinny. It's not enough of a concern that I would withhold approval of it, but those to me feel like they could use some refinement in their overall proportion, and it would make a more attractive front elevation. But I find that's a relatively minor concern of mine. And that's all.
Thanks, Kristen. Armin?
I agree with the comments, both from Eugene and Kristen. I think there are room for improvement on the design. I think comparing this with the previous project presented, I think the articulation and the material variations, I think it lacks that level of detail that we saw in the previous, but I think it's almost there. So I don't want to, as Kristen said, just uphold the approval of the project based on that. But I would second the concern that both John and Eugene had about the privacy, and I think what John suggested, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Armin. So I generally agree with the comments of the other commissioners. I'm not sure I agree with Kristen's comments on the tall windows. I would say that the farmhouse style and this particular one, which seems to be, is it Hugh Newell Jacobson that this reminds me of?
Oh yeah. Washington DC guy, right? Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit of a stylized farmhouse thing from 30 years or so ago. I do find it coherent if it's not my personal taste. I'm not here to promote my personal taste at all. I think that this house has a coherent character and is nicely conceived regardless of whether that style is my personal favorite. I do think that the tall peak dormers seem at home with the element to their right, the two-story sort of pop out, if you will. I'm looking at the image on my other screen. So I would say, in my view, that is coherent as it stands. I would like to see, as Eugene and I were talking, and as Armin agreed with, the landscaping tweaked just a little bit to enhance privacy on that north side. I think that the applicant can work with staff to come up with a way of doing that with a tree that is in leaf year round. And look at where the deciduous trees and the evergreens are on that north side of the lot. So I would like that to be a project specific condition of approval, but I have no further concerns. So with that, do one of you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this application with the additional a condition. One of them being that they need to follow up with the staff to convince or to demonstrate that there is a clear sightline protection for privacy reasons to the adjacent neighbor's property with the evergreen tree or a tree that will be a whole year round, so that there is protection there. And yeah, that would be one. Number two, I agree with Chair, but I think that just tweak the proportions slightly by inches here and there. I'm talking about the elevation. That would be also suggested. Okay, that's it. I'm talking about what Kristen said. I know where you are, John. I agree with you, but Kristen has also pointed out what one of the neighbor, Mary, said, it could be better. I think that's where we can make it a little bit better, slightly inches here. Yeah, okay.
Is that appropriate as a condition though? I mean,
as a condition of approval, is that objective enough that the applicant can respond?
I mean, even though it's my opinion, I don't actually think it's objective enough. So I don't know that it's
Go ahead,
as a condition of approval.
Okay. Well, as a condition of approval, you don't have to be so objective either, right? It's a direction, isn't it? I don't know. Okay, I'll take my motion back out. Let's work it in back. Okay, so one very clear objective one is to put evergreen or year-round tree in the sightline. Number one condition. So let's work on the second one. You want to do something there, Kristen? I'm trying to help you out because I agree with some of your thoughts.
I mean, I don't know that it needs to be part of the conditions of approval. I wouldn't withhold approval of the project based on that. It's more that I think it could be improved. So it seems, I mean, there are plenty of times in projects where I think there are proportions that could be tweaked or minor things like that, that are probably even more extreme than this, that don't need to be a condition of it.
All right, we don't have to do that one then. Let's stay with one condition. That's my motion. Let's go for it.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Armin?
Aye.
Kristen?
Aye.
Eugene?
Aye.
And John's aye. Okay, so on all of these houses, there's a 14-day appeal period. So expect that. And thank you very much. We do appreciate your responsiveness to our comments leading up to this. Moving on to our next agenda item. We have a continued hearing on HDP 24-22, the Albini residence on 3343 Carlisle Terrace. And the project planner is Matt. Is that right? Matt Jones? Is he presenting?
Matt is absent this evening, so I will be presenting on his behalf.
Okay, thank you, Renata. Go ahead.
Sure thing. Let me get my slides up. Sorry. Too many windows open. All right. All right, everybody seeing a slideshow?
Yes, there it is. Thank you.
Great. Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. Before the commission tonight is a HDP 24-22, which is a request for a hillside development permit to construct additions to the first and second stories of an existing single family residence. The subject property is in Burton Valley on the Carlisle Terrace cul-de-sac. The application is before the commission tonight as it is located within the Hillside Overlay District and would result in a structure exceeding 17 feet in height. Staff will provide an overview of the project and recommends the commission review the project, conduct a public hearing, find the project exempt from CEQA, and adopt the DRC resolution provided in the staff report, approving the project subject to standard conditions. As previously stated, the proposal includes the addition of about 1,800 square feet to the second story of an existing single family home. So here's the existing footprint, and then this gray area is the added second story, along with a small addition to a front porch and then a new covered porch to the rear. This property is in the R20 zoning district and the low density single family residential general plan land use district. And while the property is in the R20 zoning district, it is subject to a blanket variance for reduced setbacks with which this project conforms. Given this, staff finds the project complies with both the zoning requirements as well as the general plan designation. So the existing residence is a one-story single-family structure that was built in 1955. This existing structure has a maximum height of 18 feet 8 inches. As a result of this project, the height would increase to a maximum height of 28 feet. Staff finds that though there's added height to the structure, it's successfully mitigated through massing with the use of these pent roofs, open gables, these pent roofs that break the continuous second story walls on the front elevation, as well as these gabled roofs and eaves that create kind of shadowing and extension out from the building form. And additionally, the building height is also further reduced and mitigated by having the addition step back on 3 of the 4 sides of the structure. So the proposal expands upon some of the existing architectural elements in the home, including those gable roofs, horizontal roof lines that break up the massing, and then these kind of muted color tones and darker trims, such as this dark blue siding and dark roof material. Given this, staff finds these materials comply with the residential design guidelines. The property is located near the top of an open hillside, but is not within a restricted ridgeline setback. So given the addition of a second story to the existing residence on this hillside, there is potential for offsite visibility of the structure from properties below on Sweet Drive. My apologies. But staff will return to that item quickly. So the project proposes a landscape plan that utilizes mostly native species. The state does require the city to track and report water usage on new residential development under the Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance. The plans do not currently provide those water use calculations for the proposed plantings, though some water usage details are provided. Staff recommends the commission add a project-specific condition for the applicant to provide those WELO calculations prior to issuance of a building permit. As with any second-story addition, there is also consideration given to privacy impacts and view impacts. This lot is predominantly flat, as with most of the surrounding, or the building site is predominantly flat along with those neighboring building sites. And given the proposed and existing landscaping on either side of the property, staff finds that the stepping back on this western side, as well as extensive vegetation on the eastern side, can successfully mitigate any privacy impacts to the neighbors. So I believe this is the side yard on that east, where there is that second story structure existing for that neighbor. And here's that tree hedge you can see. And then this is the other, the western side, where there will be more intensive landscaping introduced to mitigate any privacy impacts. So as previously noted, this property is up on an open hillside with oak court and other structures down below. It is about a 30-foot drop in elevation between these two structures, and it's almost 300 feet in distance. So given the combination of existing vegetation, topography, and distance, staff finds that the potential for off-site visibility in this circumstance is very limited. And here's a view from the rear looking out towards those oak court properties. To conclude, staff recommends that the commission adopt the DRC resolution 2022-14 with the addition of a condition for water efficiency landscaping calculations. That will conclude my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Renata. Commissioner, questions? I do have one. Regarding setbacks, Renata, you said that staff finds this is compliant. I just wanted to confirm that includes the one place where the proposed fireplace clips into the 10-foot side yard setback. You feel that's compliant based on a blanket variance in the neighborhood? It's on the south side of the house. Oh, sorry, no, the north is not up on this plan. On the east side of the house. And if you're talking, you're muted.
I'm so sorry. Are you looking at sheet A3?
Yes.
Or okay. So I will need to confirm if the chimney is under, or the fireplace is under 6 feet in height, it is allowed to encroach into the setback.
I don't think it is.
Okay. My apologies. I'm jumping in on behalf of Matt for this.
Well, maybe no, it's definitely not under 6 feet. It looks like it's single story. I'm not sure as a fireplace how it works. If there's any kind of
I see the covered, yeah. So it's in that. I'll share the plan. So you're referring to this covered roof line area. This covered
And
Chimney.
the fireplace
Mhm.
sticks out toward the property line within the setback.
I see. Okay, well, that might need to be a slight modification to the placement of that structure to meet that setback. So if it is over 6 feet in height, then would need to be located out of the setback.
Okay, thank you. That was the only question I had. So we can open this to the applicant.
Okay, I will promote Jake Albini.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Great. Thanks, Renata, for that summary. I appreciate it. And thank you, commissioners, for the time. Again, my name is Jake Albini. I'm the owner of 3343 Carlisle Terrace. My wife and I were fortunate enough to buy this home back in 2014. At that time, we did a single-story rehab of the existing structure. 8 years later and 3 kids later, we're in need of expanding our home to accommodate more room for our kids specifically. As you're all aware, with the macroeconomic environment, especially here in Lafayette, it's extremely hard to move homes given price points, rising interest rates, short supply, and most importantly, we love our neighborhood and we love our neighbors, and we don't want to move. So we are proposing a second-story addition that's approximately 1,800 square feet, expanding the front porch and adding the covered patio in the backyard. We had a study session earlier in the year, which I gathered information from the commissioners. That really feedback really consisted of relooking at the front porch design, the architecture, adding more site context info, and providing more information in terms of the vegetation that screens both the north and the south property lines to the second story addition. I think I've gone through and added a lot of thoughtful additions and information along those lines, and I hope the commission agrees to that. Let's see. I think the last thing I'd like to say is that I've shown and distributed the plans amongst my neighbors on Carlisle Terrace, and there's overwhelming support. Everyone's in support of the second story addition, specifically my neighbors to the north and the south at 3347 Carlisle and 3339 Carlisle. That's highlighted by the inclusions of letters of support that I've included in my application. And before I finish up, I think just circling back to the chimney setback requirement, through my responses to findings from previous responses from planning staff, it was relayed to me that the chimney can actually encroach on the side yard setback, and there was no reference to height limits. I don't have the exact ordinance or city code at my fingertips, but I did specifically ask that question, and it was reviewed with both Noah and Matt Jones. So I'm not sure, Renata, what code that is, but we did look at that, and it was resolved that it could encroach onto the side yard setback. I just don't have that exact code reference at my fingertips. But all that being said, I do want to thank the commission and planning staff for visiting the site and walking through everything with me, and just want to say thank you. And that will wrap up my quick presentation.
Okay, thanks very much. Do we have commissioner questions for Mr. Albini? All right, then with that, we can open this to public comment.
If you would like to make a public comment on this item, please use the raise hand feature. There are no hands raised, Chair. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one hand raised. R.L. Stephen will be promoted. You're in the meeting as a panelist. If you would like to unmute, you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Am I on?
Yes, now we hear you. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Bob Stevenson. I live on Carlisle Terrace. It's on the bubble of the cul-de-sac. And I just want to repeat our support for what Jake is doing. The neighborhood itself has been a wonderful place to raise children. And as the children have stayed, we've wanted to increase the square footage of the houses. And so this has been going on in the cul-de-sac. I think 4 of the 7 houses are now second stories. And I think that this is just what Jake wants to do is well within what the neighborhood is doing. And I'd be happy to talk about any other questions you have, but I appreciate what you're doing.
Okay, Mr. Stevens, thank you much. Renata, anyone
Thank
else?
you. If you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise hand feature. And there are no other hands raised, Chair.
Okay, then I don't know that any rebuttal is needed to Mr. Stevens' comments. So we're open to commissioner comments. Is there anybody who would like to start? Armin, you want to start this one?
Sure. First, I want to thank applicant for the presentation. My main concern about the design and extension of the house is the east elevation, which I believe on the drawings it's called left elevation. And I think we can see the stepping of the massing and just articulation, but specifically on that elevation, I think the window pattern, the size of the windows, and just that blank facade without any kind of visual relief or change of the plane, that seems to be against some of the design guidelines that we are following for the residential projects at this scale.
Okay. Thanks, Armin. Kristen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I agree with Armin. I think overall the proposal is acceptable in terms of being a larger home and updating the scale and spaces for contemporary needs. So I'm in support of the project from that perspective, but I do think that some of the details could be refined, the composition of the elevations could be stronger, and some of the characteristics that we've looked for in other projects today, I think aren't yet present in this one. So I don't think there are strong deficiencies. I just think in terms of, I feel like as a commission, we need to be clear and consistent about the standards. So I pose this as much as a question to my fellow commissioners as anything else, I guess. So sort of looking for what are we, where do we want to, how do we want to handle that that bar for the resolution of some of those design details? So, sorry, more that I guess that would be sort of where my comment lands right now.
Okay, we can discuss, but Eugene, why don't you go ahead with your comments, please?
To start off, I think we need to set our bar high. We're Lafayette, city of Lafayette here. But Christian, that's a good comment. So going back, I think this one here, I think in the past, we've had the benefit of the architect represent the owner present. I guess Mr. Albani is the architect or designer on it. So maybe that's why I'm not sure if I can ask him that level or not, but I feel like the elevations could use some work. The side elevations could use some work. Again, we talked tonight about breaking planes, and I know the profile is more interesting than a flat symmetrical boxy look, but I think it could use some more planes broken on the side as an example. So that's all. And, you know, I share the same sentiment, Kirsten, but answer that for us, you know, this is the city of Lafayette, and we want to have high level here in our city. That's been the tradition, I believe. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Eugene. 1 second. I am looking to compare the drawings that we looked at during the study session with the drawings that we're looking at this evening. And in particular, I know that we had comments on that left side elevation. Yeah. And I'm just pulling that up. I apologize that don't have this more quickly at my fingers. It looks like, okay, this was from the study session was on March 23rd of this year. And I could share my screen if that works the best, because I do have them both. Let me just go ahead. So are you seeing a screen with a line drawing version of this? Is everybody seeing this?
Yes.
So this is what we looked at last March, and several of the commissioners, notably Glenn actually, commented he called this a boxy facade in the meeting minutes that I reread. And if you compare that with what we have that we're looking at today, I mean, while this is a more nicely drawn and more clearly presented, there's some adjustment in the windows, but the concerns that were addressed in the study session, I don't feel have been addressed at all in the revised design. This is what it was, and this is what it is. Yeah. And this is still a boxy and not well resolved design. Yeah. It's behind the shrubs. It's shielded from the neighbor. My comment last time we looked at this is at some point the shrubs are going to be replaced, and for a period of time this will be visible. I would like to see this facade design improved. I suggested, could there be a setback? Maybe yes, maybe no. Is there something that can be done to, this is just a random series of openings in a funny shape. And that's kind of what it was before. The same, the openings were a little bit different, but I don't know that the shape has changed at all. I would ask the applicant to come up with a design that this side facade is something reasonably nice to look at, regardless of the fact that right now there are shrubs that conceal a portion of it, maybe a significant portion of it. The right side elevation, I would say, is not beautiful, but I don't have as much concern about it. It's lower scale. It would be more easy to conceal. This upper portion is a distance away. But I really don't believe the applicant responded to our comments on this left side elevation. So that's my main comment. Regarding this fireplace right here, the application says that there is not a variance requested. Renata, is that incorrect? In order to do this, would a variance be required?
Yeah.
Yes, so I did look at the plans, the elevations more closely, and that structure does exceed 6 feet in height and would require a variance in that location.
So I would like to see this design such that a variance is not required. So, Mr. Albini, I certainly support the idea of expanding your house, and I think the street presence and the backyard presence are quite nice. I think that the side elevations, I wouldn't describe either one of them as quite nice, but I only have a real concern on the left side. And I would like to see this come back to us revised.
Yeah, for me, John, I have problems with both right and left. Okay.
So I think because the project did not respond to our prior comments, I think we're asking to see this again.
Okay.
So Mr. Albini, I don't know how long you'd like to come back. We could pick a date certain if you'd like.
I can bring him back into the room.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm back now. All right, where to begin? So yeah, I did change. I want to say that I did consider and hear you guys loud and clear in terms of the feedback in the study session. At this point in time, the massing and the square footage allowance for those upper bedrooms makes it really hard. Because I did look at this with my architect and took a long look at it and trying to figure out a way to set back that portion of the facade. And the comments at the time were really due to the juxtaposition of the adjacent neighbor to the south and not having visibility from that room, which kind of aligns with 3339 Carlisle. So what we did was we adjusted the windows to be really high windows, smaller high windows, just to provide sunlight into that room, and not any visibility into the second story, which is actually not even aligning in any way. It's actually offset to the west. We did reference the screening, the pictures that Renata showed you the significance of the vegetation in that area, and just due to the fact that I would prefer not to set back and lose square footage on that upper floor is the reason why I went back and just simply adjusted the windows. That being said, I guess a question back to that, and like I said, I did hear you guys loud and clear and put in a lot of time to address the other comments in terms of the front architecture and the site context with site sections and photo montages and the like. I am a little confused as to why that elevation, despite the despite the blockiness and ugliness of it, even with the screening, even with my neighbor's support, with a letter of support, the fact that's not seen from the public realm, why do I need to come back and sacrifice square footage to address that concern? And if it's a real sticking point, I understand that. Can I do a project specific condition similar to the previous homes that were having the same issues? Is there something that I can address along those lines so I can at least release my architect to begin the design drawings? I don't want to keep going back and forth. Time is of the essence. So those are a series of questions and comments that I have for the commission and would appreciate your feedback.
All right, well, speaking for myself, just as one of us, I understand the potential difficulty in stepping back the upper level on your left side elevation, and would be open to a design that divides and organizes that facade in a way that doesn't include or doesn't require an actual step back. Is that a continued roof line across it, or some organization of trim, something to start to create a hierarchy of parts in the way that we talked about on another project this evening? I don't know if you were listening in.
Yeah.
The difference between this project and that project is the facade on that house was completely concealed by trees and was nearly 100 feet from the next closest neighbor, concealed, behind a fairly dense grove of sort of woodland. That's not the case here. This is going to be visible from the street, even though it's partially obscured by shrubs. The shrubs are not going to live forever. They'll have to be replaced. And for at least a period of time, this will be completely visible. And, quite honestly, Mr. Albini, we thought we were clear, and I've got meeting minutes that show it, that we had concerns on the organization, the design of this facade. It was not strictly about the visibility of the neighbor. I do appreciate that you addressed that with the higher windows. It's about, quite to be blunt here, we try not to approve things that are just simply ugly. And this facade, the rest of the house is nice. The front and the back, I think, are very nice. I would like your side yard to be addressed by something that, well, maybe not, as much of a feature as those other two, does not just seem to be unfortunate. I think you can
Okay.
do it without a step back there. I think you can look at a reorganization of some elements and establishing some hierarchy of grouping things. And I ask you to work with your designer to improve that facade.
Okay. So it
Other
doesn't
commissioners,
necessarily-
anything that you would have to add to that?
You articulate very well, Chair. I think we share the same sentiment with you, Chair.
So, you know, I hate to drag this out, but I'm disappointed that you weren't responsive to our comments. To that particular one anyway, which was, I think, one of the most significant ones.
Yeah, and also maybe Mr. Albani, if you have your designer or the architect be available, then we can kind of get at it with him technically. That way you could, you know, not take the, you know, technical burden here. But if you could, that would be great next meeting.
Yeah, I'm really taking the lead here. I have a draftsman that's
Yeah.
helping me, so
I appreciate you doing this. So
thank you, Commissioner. So yeah, to go back to Chair's comments, the solution could be a trim and siding solution, not necessarily a setback and a alteration to the massing.
well, let me chime in a little bit, Mr. Albani. I think what Commissioner Chair is talking about as the commissioners, I think there's many ways to articulate this facade more. I think it's what John is saying is right on target, but you could go with you know, window detail, but you could also talk about inches. Like I think Commissioner Siddell talked about in the other project where you're breaking the plane, not taking the whole space in or out, because that'd be a lot of real estate loss for you. Obviously, this is an important investment for you and your family needs to use maximum of it, but they're probably tweaking of the skinning of it, but not skinning flat, right? We're talking about some shadow release maybe by inches. And I don't want to be your designer. You have an architect probably well qualified to do this, but he or she needs to probably hear us and probably knows how to do it technically to break the plane, deeper recessed windows, trims, you know, more elaborate stuff. It's called articulation, I think. That's all. All right, Mr. Albani, thank you.
No, that makes sense. Makes sense.
And you know, in my view, I think organization of elements into a composition that has some hierarchy.
Yeah, it's all part of the articulation, my vocabulary. All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, would you like to pick a date to get back together or not yet?
Yeah, that'd be great. What's the next available date?
So we have to see if we have a quorum for the meeting in 2 weeks from today, December 14th, I believe it is.
Yes.
I am not. I think I mentioned to the group last time I'm not available for that meeting. I think Glenn told us he is only available for part of that meeting. But if 3 of you are available for all of it, the meeting can go.
I'll try. I gotta check on something, but right now is not time to spend it. So
Mr. Albini, is 2 weeks enough for you to look at this and come? So you need actually to have it done in 1 week to go to staff for intake and distribution.
So I might recommend also, because the city council still has not yet finalized the meeting calendar for next year. One way we could approach this is to continue this item to the next meeting, which is December 14th. And if that meeting is not held due to lack of quorum or materials are not ready, it can always be continued to the next meeting, the next available date.
Okay. We'll shoot for the 14th, and for some reason there's not a quorum, we can, I guess, push it to the next available
Yes,
date.
and just for your reference, so as Chair Gray mentioned, materials would need to be submitted to staff no later than the 6th or 7th to prepare a staff report, which is quite a quick turnaround. But we're happy to meet with you and discuss the commission's comments to help.
Sounds good. And again, I don't mean to be short with anybody. I appreciate the commission's time and the effort in reviewing all this. I appreciate it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you as well. Thank you.
Okay,
Do we have a motion? Does anyone want to make a motion?
would
Can
one
we
of
just
you?
do a motion to continue it? To,
To
I make the
December
motion
14th.
to continue this to the next meeting, to December 14th.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Harmon,
Aye.
Kristen,
Aye.
Eugene,
Aye.
and John is aye. Okay, with no new public hearings, the other business item on the agenda is ARC volunteer for December 16th. Is that right? That's the next ARC session?
Yes, and though Commissioner Cass was not able to come to this meeting, he did offer to serve on ARC for that date.
Okay, well, thank you, Glenn. We will accept that.
Yeah.
For other business, I think I noted we should do a quorum check for the 14th. Eugene will have to get back to us
Yeah.
to confirm.
I will get back soon though, but I have something. Yeah, I'll try to rework it.
Okay. The one other item I'd like to mention here, I can't remember, I thought I had mentioned it before, but maybe we got some new staff members. If I could request, when you distribute staff reports and applicant drawings, in the past, they've been separated typically, which I find handy because number one, everything's the same page size. And number two, you can read the report and look at the drawings at the same time. Can I ask that, that when you provide your reports, you go back to that method?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you very much. Anything else, anyone? On the commission side, there's also an item for staff reports.
I will just plug again that we still have a vacancy for Planning Commission. So if you all know any Lafayette residents who have land use expertise and are interested in serving the community, that is an opportunity, and we're more than happy to talk through the responsibilities. I mean, you all can probably shed more light on what it's like. But I think that would be the main one. And then the city offices are closed from the 23rd to the 2nd. So if you are looking for staff, some of us will be working, but we'll be formally closed.
I hope you can take a break.
Yeah, well deserved. Well deserved.
Oh, and I know the housing element hasn't come before you all, but I'm sure you're likely curious. But the city council has continued to provide direction to staff on revisions for the housing element. So we are looking to return to the Planning Commission early January with, a more comprehensive update with a deadline to adopt the revised draft or document by January 31st. So if you have any other questions on that, I'm happy to.
I'm sure everybody's working very hard.
Yes, but I think that's all I have to share.
Okay, well then thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.